Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. There is nothing to report out of closed session. Are there any statements of abstention? No. Any adjustments to the agenda? Director Gonzalez.
I'd like to pull E9.
Okay. Any board member requests for information? No? Oh, Director Carl.
Thank you. I had requested some time back some understanding of what it would take to have an elementary band or extended music program in elementary school, fiscal impact and et cetera. So I'm hopeful that we have something come back to the board by sometime in the first quarter of next year in that regard.
Okay. Then I need approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second. Oops.
That was moved by Director Pugh, seconded by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Close? Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Gonzalez?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
So now we're going to move on to the Classified School Employee of the Year nominees.
It's a paperclip. What do we do?
Okay. Each year, the Sonoma County Office of Education invites schools and districts to participate in the statewide Classified School Employee of the Year program, recognizing contributions of classified employees throughout California who support our pre-K through 12th grade students. The Classified School Employee of the Year program is to pay tribute to these tireless efforts of our county's outstanding classified school employees, who are vital staff members and play key roles in creating school environments that promote student achievement, safety, and health. At Santa Rosa City Schools, we proudly employ more than 570 classified employees. This represents 40% of our total staff. Our classified staff are found in many careers, including technology, food service, instructional support staff, school office staffing, custodial staff, accounting and finance, and much more. This year, Santa Rosa City Schools had 8 classified employees who were nominated by their school site principals for their exemplary work that contributes hugely to school operations and student success. They are not only dedicated and motivated workers, but also a source of inspiration to students and faculty who demonstrate a kind, positive attitude under pressure, making the needs of the students their #1 priority. So right now, I'm going to call your name, and if you're here, we'd really appreciate it if you'd come down to receive your certificate, but also I'm going to read a little bit about why you were nominated by your site. So the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education would like to recognize Ava Calderon, Elementary School Office Manager at Brook Hill Elementary. Ava had planned on attending, but she couldn't because she's moved on to her second job this evening, correct? She's a very hard worker. Barbara Lynn Lawrence, elementary school office manager at Helen Lehman Elementary. Louise Lash. Louise, are you here? Yay. So Louise, if you'd come over here, I'm going to speak about you for a few minutes. Louise currently works as an instructional assistant in our Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, also known as DHH, at Hidden Valley Elementary School, and she is a school librarian. She is the go-to person for just about everything the staff, students, and parents need within our Hidden Valley school community. She patiently and kindly serves our DHH students from the sweetest to the most challenging with her gentle manner. Louise efficiently and effectively manages all aspects of our school libraries, both at the main campus as well as at our satellite school. She's a problem solver and is not one to pass any task onto someone else, but always goes the extra mile to ensure that it is accomplished. If someone has a need, she meets that need and sees it through to completion. Louise is always willing and ready to do whatever needs to be done in order to serve our school community. Louise is a well-known and familiar face at the Hidden Valley campus. She arrives early each day, ready to get the school community's day started off on the right note. She is able to strike the proper balance between being gentle and nurturing with all of our DHH students, always finding the precise way to be clear, structured, and firm, all with her gentle and compassionate way. Louise is a support to all the DHH teaching staff as well as the other instructional assistants. She is committed to the Hidden Valley community and helps to make this school the success that it is. Louise has been a leader who consistently goes above and beyond what is asked of her. She is dedicated to helping our students achieve, and her patience is immeasurable. Louise is open to learning new techniques, and she strives to do the right thing with some of our most difficult students. She puts out tremendous effort, and always with a kind heart and a smile. Let's say congratulations to Louise and give her a round of applause. You almost escaped. Tammy Leggins, the school secretary at Rincon Valley Middle School. Tammy wasn't able to be with us tonight, but we thank her for all her work. We move on to Josefina Lopez. Josefina goes way above and beyond her required duties as the night custodian at Albert Biela Elementary School. She always has a smile on her face, as you can see now, tonight. She walked down to see us, and works extremely hard. Josefina comes in early if we need her to. She participates and has everything ready for any event that comes her way and that is held at the school. Her positive disposition to help anyone in need is contagious. She is such a great asset to our school and district community, and we at Santa Rosa City Schools thank you for your service. Aida Ortez from Santa Rosa Middle School. Aida is an outstanding support to the entire Santa Rosa Middle School team, supporting students, staff, and parents in her position as office manager and principal's secretary. This was written by Kathy Coker, so I'm just going to take a few minutes. She loves you, loves you. Aida's strong work ethic, combined with her many strengths and talents, contribute to a school team that models teamwork, collegiality, and genuine concern for every person encountered. Aida is a model for balancing competence and professionalism with compassion for humanity. She has become the hub and mother figure for our school, and she does this tirelessly. Aida manages the school budget flawlessly. She orders all necessary materials and supplies, communicating effectively with district staff, our staff, private vendors, and our parent community. Aida manages databases and record keeping, easily accessing necessary information for reports and data collection. She produces our bi-monthly newsletter, doing a magnificent job, which also includes translating it all into Spanish. Her bilingual skills are a tremendous asset to our entire school community. Her competence and skills with technology help to structure and organize all office procedures. Her outstanding communication skills bring harmony to our whole campus, as she consistently works in a supportive, professional, and caring manner. Aida's community involvement is an extraordinary and inspiring example for everyone. I am constantly amazed at how many caring things she does for so many people, not only through her connections with people at our school, but in the entire Sonoma County community, whether it's collecting coats for needy people in the winter, preparing meals to deliver to sick people, preparing food and raising money for foster children, participating in our Light the Night walk to raise money for blood cancers, or donating her time and efforts to school groups. Aida and her husband are always there. He's here tonight, as a matter of fact, right? In fact, I have just learned that both Aida and her husband are applying to the Law Enforcement Chaplain Academy program so they can offer comfort and support to people in crisis situations. Aida and her husband, Zeke, truly care about all people. Aida's efforts to reach out to others are tireless, and she always does so quietly, without drawing any attention to herself. When we had a tragic death occur on campus last year, she was there right away to support the family. She always is there for people, all day, every day. It's no wonder our entire staff seeks her out daily for comfort. As a spokesperson for our school community, Aida is always positive, friendly, and professional. She constantly reaches out to others to support, assist, and provide service. As an office manager, she has the ability to maintain a broad perspective, appreciating the needs of the whole team. She is calm and patient, often observing anything of concern for a period of time before making any decision to suggest changes or to take actions. She leads by example, graciously accepting all responsibilities with a positive, can-do attitude. She is always eager to help others, offering to ease everyone else's burdens by helping out however she can. Aida is organized, prompt, and efficient, again, leading by example. She maintains friendly, helpful, and positive relationships with all team members, supporting a very diverse school community. She meets all deadlines without showing worry or stress. Rather, she manages her time effectively and deliberately. Finally, she is the light in everyone's day. Her professionalism, her friendly and helpful demeanor, and her genuine concern for the needs of others sets her apart as an exemplary employee and certainly a person worthy of this commendation. Congratulations and thank you so much for all you do. Rafael Sanabria. Senor Rafael Sanabria is an exemplary employee. I'm sorry, he's from Elsie Allen High School, and he's in maintenance, operations, and facilities. Not only does he attend to any facility needs and with immediacy and the utmost care, but he encourages staff, students, parents, and community to go the extra mile. He meets daily with his custodial team and instills in them a sense of pride and encouragement as they start their shift. His instructions and expectations are extremely clear, which result in a pristine campus. If you've ever been on Elsie's campus, it's the cleanest high school in the district. Throughout the day, Raphael is seen with a smile on his face and a song in his heart, which all can hear. No task is too daunting for Raphael to tackle. He is fondly known as McGiver for his ability to use whatever, duct tape, straws, aluminum foil, superglue, whatever, to repair any job. As an example, our boys basketball team made history this year by securing the Sonoma County League championship title. And it was imperative that we had a working scoreboard. The McGiver did not hesitate to undertake the challenge and make sure that the boys would be proud to play in our gym. Thank you. Now this is about school community involvement. Senor Rafael is an avid learner. He eagerly attended restorative practices training and learned how to empower students to show empathy towards others and take responsibility for their behavior. He has been an integral member of many restorative practice circles. Expressing himself in metaphors and similes, he speaks from his heart about how he loves our school and how the students' behavior has caused him harm personally to our community at large and how things can be made right. Secondly, Rafael is a teacher. His life lesson stories he freely shares with us Secondly, Rafael is a teacher. His life lesson stories he freely shares with us cause one to re-examine our level of cultural sensitivity and commitment. Finally, he is a bridge to our community. He is involved in every aspect of the school. You will find Senor translating for student study teams, school site council, and parent-teacher meetings. Recently, a student confided in him that he was considering suicide. Rafael immediately went into action, connecting the student and family with the right resources and forming the right people. He literally saved the student's life. He has been written up by Chris Smith, a notable Press Democrat reporter, where he was lauded as the, quote, heart of Elsie Allen High School. We often hear Senor Rafael say, "This is my home. These are my kids." He speaks from his heart. He speaks the truth and sets the bar high for himself and all those around him. Motivated by his love of learning and commitment to Elsie Allen High School, Rafael exudes the dignity, integrity, and respect that he advocates. It is not uncommon for staff members to request Rafael to speak in their classes, for he inspires greatness. He has been asked by many to speak at various award ceremonies, and last year was the keynote speaker at the 2014 Latinos in the Workplace Conference, where he shared stories and life lessons learned from his grandfather. It is not uncommon to see alumni return to Elsie and seek out Rafael. They share life's trials, tribulations, and successes with him, and he continues to mentor these young adults. We are thrilled to give him his principal is thrilled to give him her highest recommendation. He is a unique employee, one that gives so freely of himself, inspired by the goal to challenge and change young people's minds, hearts, and lives. Congratulations, Rafael Sanabria, and we so much appreciate your service and the wonderful job you do every single day at Elsie Allen High School. Thank you. Okay, last but not least is Tina Youngblood from Herbert Slater. Hi, Tina, congratulations. As the Herbert Slater Middle School Secretary for the past 11 years, Ms. Tina Youngblood has developed, implemented, and manages an organizational system that results in a calm, efficient, and welcoming environment rarely seen in public agencies, never mind middle schools. From the mundane, everyday duties of processing the mail, managing substitutes, and verifying time cards, to the intricate, critical responsibilities of being the main public contact, preparing the opening of school, and organizing school-wide community events, Ms. Youngblood utilizes an assortment of organizational techniques and strategies to ensure success. Besides her ever-friendly professional demeanor, Ms. Youngblood is equally knowledgeable of a multitude of computer applications to facilitate and support school needs. Be it an agenda, a budget, a presentation, or a flyer, Ms. Youngblood knows how to quickly and effectively complete the project or offer support to completion. Furthermore, Ms. Youngblood's organizational systems, ticklers, filing, and communication trees ensure that staff, students, parents, and the community constantly receive timely and informative notices of upcoming meetings, events, and celebrations. There are no surprises at Slater Middle School. Finally, Ms. Youngblood understands district systems, forms, and peculiarities. Because of this and the countless connections she has established, Ms. Youngblood is able to support teachers and administration, and therefore the educational process and success at Slater. Ms. Youngblood is not only the first contact for all parents and community members who visit Slater, but also the staff's primary contact for anything and everything. Through Ms. Youngblood's warm and welcoming disposition, enviable memory, and long tenure, she has established an ongoing relationship with families whose multiple siblings have come through Slater. In addition, Ms. Youngblood's knowledge of the school's program and staff allows her to be the most informative of staff members, to welcome new parents, students, and staff to Slater. Principal Cunningham said, "Tina runs me. I would not be able to do my job without her working knowledge of this site." The district office and outside agencies always receive timely and complete responses to information requests, and Ms. Youngblood's attention to detail and understanding of school, district, and state policies and procedures ensure that confidentiality and discretion are the cornerstone of her process. Slater's administration office is not a series of different departments, but a single unified organization working together to ensure a smooth, responsive operation. Ms. Youngblood is at the center of this organization, and under her advice, leadership, knowledge, and positive attitude, she has established a culture of mutual support and teamwork to address every situation. There are no errors at Slater, only opportunities to help, learn, and solve together. Ms. Youngblood is the epitome of the perfect school secretary. She is smart, talented, caring, and tough when necessary, but always kind. She is a critical piece to the success of Slater Middle School and every student in it. Tina is dedicated and committed to her job, representing herself as an exemplary professional in every position she has held throughout her long tenure with Santa Rosa City Schools. In this position as principal secretary, she has proven to be irreplaceable. Slater Middle School is proud and lucky to have Ms. Youngblood as their secretary, and Santa Rosa City Schools is very, very proud and lucky to have you as one of our employees. Congratulations. Well, we have some pretty exceptional people working for us, and we're very happy that you all took the time to come down here tonight. We know you're busy and you're tired after a long day, so thank you so much for coming here and allowing us to recognize you. So we're going to take 5 minutes and give families the time to leave, but looks like you're on your way, but if you want to chat a little bit, that's fine too. You're welcome. We'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, everybody, we're going to come back to the meeting, please. And we're going to start with public comments of items not on the agenda. Members of the public may bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda. The board shall take no action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda except as authorized by law. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Should a member of the public have comments that pertain to a complaint against an employee of the district, the board advises that the matter should first be pursued using the appropriate district complaint procedure. So I have 4 cards. First speaker is Peter Alexander, followed by Jeremy Delatorre. Mr. Alexander.
Okay, good evening. It's actually Peter Alexander Cherneff. I'm also known as Cactus Pete, often bitter, sometimes sweet. I'm also Sonoma County's Cactus Commissioner. And having done 20 cactus fences in the area, the supervisors finally boosted and we put one up at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. And as I was listening to you honor teachers, I wanted to honor a teacher that I knew. I didn't know her when she was teaching, but I met her in the 90s, and she's probably your most famous kindergarten teacher of all time, Janice Gearhart. And she used to do gardens and greenhouses for the kids, and I met her at the SRJC while she was taking classes in her 70s or 80s, and she toddled around in a flower dress and flowers in her hair, and it was always fun to see these big hulking students come up and say, "You remember me, Mrs. Gearhart?" So in honor of her, I would like to offer any school in Sonoma County 40 cactus pads to do a living cactus fence free of charge, and you simply would have to contact Supervisor David Rabbit with the information. And a living fence, of course, is a food source, flower source, fruit source, medicinal, nutritional, frost resistant, drought resistant, and you should look up cactus recipes. Okay, there's 2 more items I want to address briefly, and one of them, they're sort of heavy topics, so if you have a pencil, especially you students, you might want to write this down. One of them is regarding our voting system. You should look up the fact that a guy named Bill Clinton, his real last name was Rockefeller. You want to look up to see if his father really was Winthrop Rockefeller. And his wife is running for president, and you should know that if you Googled Hillary Clinton, Kathy O'Brien, you'll find some interesting things that might be shocking, except when you find out that Bill Clinton has been running around with Jeff Epstein since the 1980s, the billionaire, banker, pedophile pimp. Okay, so now we've got a guy named Bush who's also running, and we should know that he withheld 30,000 black votes in Florida on behalf of his brother. All right, running out of time. They both hold stock in Tyson and ConAgra food distributors, the biggest ones in the country, that import hundreds of tons of meat filler and byproducts for their national clients, which are all the In-N-Outs, Burgers, Wendy's, and of course all the school systems. And we'll tell you that on the computers you saw that human DNA was found in a lot of meats, and the fact is that it's only 15% by law that the burgers have to have cow in them. Only 15%. And so the rest of it from these meat fillers from China for the last 30 years is about 20% dog meat, 35% human cadaver flesh, and the rest is seaweed and soy fillers, and of course pharmaceuticals, so that we have 400 children dying every day of cancers in this country, and we have our pets coming down with cancers. So this is actually a very serious and true information which can be verified, and I thank you for your time, and especially in regards to Janice Gearhart, your #1 of all time kindergarten teacher.
Thank you. Jeremy Delatorre and Sigrid Smith, followed by Sigrid Smith.
Hey, my name is Jeremy Delatorre. I'm here tonight as a father, as a husband, as a member of the Puma Athletic Boosters community with Maria Curie High School, but most importantly as a frustrated and concerned Maria Curie High School student-athlete parent. I'm here to bring to the attention again to the board and to the district the unsafe, embarrassing conditions of our athletic practice fields and football stadium fields. We have a nationally ranked women's soccer team that plays games on this field, and it's not fit for rec soccer to be played on. We continue to have irrigation problems out at our high school, where we can see maintenance crews from the district there almost weekly attempting to repair these problems. There was a huge mud pit in the middle of the football field. We're currently in the middle of a drought, so that mud pit could only come from one place, and that was poor irrigation systems. Some dirt fill was brought in to rectify this situation, and football player parents went through that dirt and sifted out multiple large rocks, pieces of wood pallets, and most concerning, a 3-inch lag bolt was pulled out of that field dirt that was put on a field by district maintenance crews to repair this site. This is not a new problem. I have been a CREO parent for the last 6 consecutive years, and I continue to see these problems increase and progressively get worse each year. Last year, the voters approved a school site only bond measure to improve these sites, and Maria Creel is one of those sites that should be improved. We're also on our 20-year next year, so it's the golden year where at 20 years campuses should be improved and worked on, and this is money that seriously needs to get put into the CREO and improve these conditions. Very frustrated and tired of seeing these student athletes who work tirelessly at practice and put the time and effort in to become the best athletes possible, and we ask them to compete on substandard fields and tracks. Our track is no longer repairable. It should be comparable to potholes in Petaluma, the amount of problems that are on this all-weather track. They are not only just holes, it's about 2 to 3 feet in diameter problems throughout the track. My son suffers from Seaver's disease, which affects his feet and ankles and the tendons with his ligaments, and it's no better than running on concrete currently on that track. So I'm just here tonight as a concerns parent to bring it to your guys' attention again. We'll continue to discuss it with you. We'll continue to talk about it. If there is a plan, we haven't heard of it yet. If there's no plan yet, we'd love to be a part of the solution. I'm here just to bring these matters to your attention, and thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Delatorre. Sigrid Smith, followed by Michael Vonderpoort.
Hello, members of the board. And hopefully you received the letters that I had. I went to the office today and I put in a letter with pictures that I took while I was at the Ridgeway Child Care Center. I used to work for the Nueva Vista High School, and then I retired from there. And the child care teacher that took my place, she's on maternity leave, and so they asked me if I could maybe come and do sort of a long-term sub, so that's what I've been doing. And when I went into the classroom, I was just absolutely blown away with the state of the classroom, because they have absolutely no counters, no cabinets, nothing for storage. We are using those fold-out tables, and you saw the pictures, and so we can't even have any of the children over there because it's unsafe. And we always have to take the laundry, the toys, and the dishes home every night to wash because we don't have a sanitizer, we don't have a dishwasher. Well, we had a sanitizer at Nueva Vista, and we don't have a dryer. And like today, for instance, one of our teachers had an emergency. She was the one that's supposed to take the stuff home. So the other teacher, she had 2 meetings. Her husband wasn't even going to pick her up until almost 6 o'clock tonight, and then she was taking all those things home to wash so that we could have school again tomorrow. And so it is, I mean, it's just I just can't understand how we're functioning in the type of classroom that we are. And the water, our custodian fills up the big thing of water. He has to go across the volleyball court with a hose, fill it up, and then he brings it to our classroom. And then from there, we take it and we fill it into the portable sinks that are supposed to be outside in a play yard. And the sinks are like this deep, and they're 8 inches wide, and this is where we wash the hands, we rinse off the dishes and stuff that we use for the children when we feed them. And these are sinks to be outside. These are not inside sinks. And all we have, we were told, use the sink in the bathroom. Well, I'm trying to get, drinking water out of the bathroom just made no sense to me whatsoever. But that wasn't my choice. I mean, I came and this was already set in place. And we have no play yard at this point, so the children are in the classroom all day long. And these children need fresh air. And we are in a building it's earmarked for early Head Start. And I was just told today we were only supposed to be in there for 2 weeks before we'd get into the other 2 portables that are on the site at Ridgeway. And, oh my goodness, I'm almost out of time. But because of some state paperwork not being signed, we can't move in there, even though nothing is in there right now except for bathrooms. So once again, we'd have to have cabinets, the whole works. And so basically what I'm just asking is to give us a permanent home, and if there's any way you can expedite this process so that we can go in there and, have a regular classroom for the children. I mean, today I couldn't even do paper. I wanted to do finger painting, and the head teacher said, Sigrid, it's in one of the boxes in one of the warehouses, because we just don't have the things in the classroom. So I just beg of you to please just, take care of our little ones, of the teen parents. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael Vonderpoorten.
Yep, I'm Mike Vonderpoorten. It's been many years since I've had an opportunity to come before you. You remember the days over at the Ridgeway offices and the board packets that were stacks of paper yay high. I'm here to talk about grades. Grades have been shown to be the best predictor of college success. They can tell us where 8th graders who've not done well are starting to do well. They can tell us where 9th graders have improved in the 10th grade. They can tell us how 9th graders, for example, are doing as seniors and they're getting ready to graduate. Grades let us find where we have success. Grades are valuable if you care about success. There are detractors out there, but grade data is available. It's consistent, it's relevant, and it's available over many, many years, unlike test data where the tests seem to come and go. Years ago, grade data was being looked at by this Board of Education. It was available to the public, it was available to the press, and it was free. Now it costs $300 to $1,200 to more than $1,500 to get that data. The fact that the database isn't available tells us that no one on this Board of Education, no one in the administration is looking at these data and doing the analysis that could be so useful. This administration and the school board should be open, interested, and forthcoming with this data. You should be looking. You can do so much more analysis in Excel and other programs than we could just a very few years ago. You personally can do that analysis. We, the public, can do that analysis. The public should have a chance to see these data. The press should have a chance to see these data. There should not be a $1,000 or more roadblock to understanding how our students succeed. We should be able to find out what is causing success and what works in the schools. So board members, I'm asking you to ask for this data. If you get the data, then it'll be available to others. Direct that it be made available to the public and make sure it's available without charge. Our schools can be better. You shouldn't be preventing us from receiving that data and finding out how to make things work and where there is success. So I'm going to invite you, board members, please, and the administration, free the data. Free the data. Please, free the data.
Thank you. Those are the only public speaker cards that I have, right? Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to move on to Employee Association reports. President of SRTA, Ola King-Clay.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, and board members. Time. It's a mighty character. No one can control it. After this weekend, we will be in the month of November, and the holidays will soon be within reach. Can you believe, or do you believe, that we have made some strides in some areas of concern? The technology team has gone to their third power. The Wi-Fi is being fitted in every site. Cleanup is on a roll. Most sites are getting that overdue dusting. Conference team is moving in the right direction. SRTA is looking forward to helping host the next big event. TADCOM had its first meeting with a positive twist and a large learning curve. Looking forward to November 19th, LCAP meeting. This should be exciting and educational at the same time. Special shouts. The first one goes out to the special ed departments throughout the district. Teachers met at the CTA building, and they all attended the Learning All meeting on October 22nd. It was attended by 67 special ed teachers. I was totally impressed. And it was hosted by Aaron Root and Ginger Matich. They did an awesome job. I did not know we had that many people teaching special ed. Lo and behold, they are super awesome at their jobs. Elementary teacher, Marty Cassidy, for all his hard work and effort in and outside of class. He works diligently with his students. He makes them shine. And the last one, now you have to be there to see this. I had the opportunity to see Art Horner in action, teaching his students about American Industrial Revolution and explaining the importance of its function in history and how we learn from those events. It's all about the Benjamins. Let me talk about commitments. I see it as a state of connections, wanting to make every effort to do the right thing, making the necessary adjustments to a schedule or best laid plans, moving in the upward direction, prompt meeting times, not procrastinating, and above all, working as a team. You lay the plan, it will happen. So with that, if you're ever meeting with me, make sure you're on time and you bring the treats. Now some positive, uplifting news. Thanks to Director Frank, for the suggestion of having the 10th graders take the placement test and not everybody and their brother. Great idea. For Diane, info, the Good Teaching Conference that is hosted by CTA, and I must add, I am one of the chairpersons for that committee. We will be having a Good Teaching Conference in April in San Jose, and I'm sure hoping the district sends 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 teachers. It's worth it. And the California League of Middle Schools, or CLMS, will be holding its 20th annual Educator of the Year dinner December 4th at the Mary Agatha Center in Windsor. Yours truly is hosting. At this point, all 5 of our middle schools have nominees. And I sure hope that some of you can attend, better yet, all of you, to see some fantastic stories about these teachers. And it's an opportunity to mingle with other superintendents, principals, and just fantastic teachers in general. And the last bit, it is so nice to see people smiling at these meetings. As my mom would say, it increased the value of your face. So just smile. And last, of course, not least, words of wisdom. As I said, I'm on a host of committees, and from time to time, I will close it out with words of wisdom for you this evening. Something I have read for CTA, CATA, which is California Directors of Activities, and of course, CLMS. It's entitled Then Some, Carl Holmes. These 3 little words are the secret to success. They are the difference between average people and top people in most companies and schools. The top people always do what is expected and then some. They are thoughtful of others. They are considerate and kind. and then some. They meet their obligations and responsibilities fairly and squarely, and then some. They are good friends and helpful neighbors, and then some. They can be counted on in an emergency, and then some. I am thankful for those people, for they make the world more livable. Their spirit of service is summed up in these little words, and then some. Thank you, and smile.
Thank you. Then we have our certificate classified staff. Tammy Afonso, is she here? Tammy with CSEA Chapter 75. Hello, Tammy.
Hi. Well, my technology failed me tonight, so I had to try and remember everything I had written down. I'll do my best. So good evening, President Jay and school board members, Superintendent Shields, our student board member. We would like to thank the school board this evening for recognizing our classified members. Their enthusiasm, not only in their work with their fellow employees, but also out in the community, is comparable to, I don't know what I want to say, to those who actually went further. Hopefully this next year we will have someone to move forward also. One of the things that I'd like to speak on tonight is the joining of chapters 75 and 367. We are finally coming to the end of a long process of discussion between both chapters and the willingness to come together as one. So beginning November 1st, we will all be known as Chapter 75 classified employees. And we will also be beginning the process of joining contracts and a lot of other things that will take place for us on our level. So hopefully we will have new board members to reflect both of our chapters and moving forward in working with the district on behalf of both. So it's a new process for us. So thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Is Chris Fierro here? No. Okay. Now we'll move on to superintendent report.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. Like Ola mentioned, the months are kind of rapidly passing us by. We're already at the end of October. For us, that means parent conferences are happening this week. We thank everyone in our elementary school setting who is able to join us. The partnership with the families is incredibly important, so making the time to meet your teachers, speak with them individually, and hear how your child is doing and how we move forward together is really priceless, and we look forward to seeing you on these days. So thank you for those who have been able to make it. This week, we also celebrate at our high schools the opening of our college and career centers, and I want to thank Debbie Bettini for all of her hard work. C&I has really pulled off a great accomplishment representing the vision of the board in terms of providing opportunities for students. The space itself is royal and grand. It is beautiful, student-chosen furniture, really open and inviting, and the counselors themselves have done amazing work in creating a very welcoming space, and the staffs really are excited to have this very visible and tangible service for students. So we are all grateful for that work and look forward to the growth of those centers over time to be just amazing spaces and epicenters of positive engagement by students and families. Last week, we also kicked off year 2 of our tours to the Museum of Tolerance, and thank you, Elizabeth Evans, for your tireless work in herding all of us cats. Us traveling from here to LA is quite a to-do, and we have some princesses. and princes, but it's a lot getting us all from here to there, and it's such an amazing experience itself. The museum experts, what they do, the way they facilitate conversations, are really incredibly deep experiences. It's both a personal journey, but a journey for our district as well. It's exciting to kick off. Thank you to the community members and staff who were able to go with us. We have follow-up meetings scheduled we'll hear more about tonight. They're incredibly important. And as many people know and have participated in, the unconscious bias training that SRTA, CTA, and the district are engaged in is just another level of the professional care that our staff is giving to best quality service to students in the community, really looking at ourselves and looking at the work we do and always thinking about how we improve in the world we live in and contribute to our greater community. So that really is admirable, and I thank the staff for their hard work, both in organizing it and then being fully present when they participate. Again, in the effort to really continue positive conversations and grow relationships, on the second Thursday of every month, we're going to start, I even hate to say this out loud, but Soup with the Soup. And so we will have soup available in the district office from 5:30 to 7:30. I can't promise that it will be homemade, but it will be hot, at least in these cold months. And we will just have an open forum to sit and talk, and there's no agenda, there'll be no speeches, there might not even be answers to some of the questions, but because I'll have to research it, but I look forward to meeting and greeting anyone from the public, staff, students, parents, anybody. We're going to try the most cost-effective ways to advertise this, so you'll be hearing about it through a call and hopefully in your district newsletter, on the website. We have all the dates planned out, as well as perhaps on your school site website and your school site newsletter. It's going to be a new venture for me. We haven't done this before, but we look forward to meeting you and greeting you at these opportunities. Again, the first one is November 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. Soup with the Soup. Yeah. So with that, thank you this evening for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more both about the college and career centers. I know that's a discussion item, and our equity journey as individuals in a district will also be a further item. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm having a hard time picturing you making soup, but maybe.
Again, I did not promise it would be homemade. Someone at Safeway might be making it by hand. Homemade is another thing.
Okay, moving right along. We're going to go into the, I'm going to give a brief report on a teacher advisory committee meeting, or TADCOM meeting on Tuesday, October 20th. We discussed the, do teachers have monies for supplies, and are they given the money at the sites? And the answer was no. This is a site issue with principals managing their allocations. We don't have money for additional dollars, but we do realize how important it is to our students, and appreciate all of the donations that our teachers make to their own classrooms. It led to a discussion about the role of foundations in this district, and how we have foundations now at each one of our high schools, but we don't have any at our elementary schools or our middle schools. And then in addition to that, the disparity between the schools, and the lack of equity with parental participation. And where do we go from here? How do we create that? And there are some people in the community who have come forward, and parents who have come forward and offered to work on that. And we're hoping to build bridges with these people and benefit, so that all of our students can benefit from the same riches that a foundation brings to the schools. The second item on the agenda was about the California Standard Curriculum Development and professional teacher time to develop understanding strategies and well-designed lessons to fully be implemented. So we had some teachers at the TADCOM report about their experiences, and some of the elementary schools are starting their maker class lessons. A lot of excitement about that. They talked about project lead and being part of a science and math curriculum, and getting involved in enriching the science and math curriculum. Everybody was very positive, and that was really good. Middle schools, Kathy Shanklin was there to discuss her experience with social studies training at Tamales. She said it was very, very successful, very personally gratifying to her and enriching to her. But others also said that they really appreciated the ability to meet in small groups and keep the topic very narrow, and also appreciated that they, the work that they did collaboratively, they can talk to each other and go back and refer and confer with each other throughout the year, because relationships have been formed through this. So they were very pleased with that type of training. And then we also wanted to let you know that Diane wanted to let you know that district-wide trainings can now be found on the website, but we're not at the point now where we have site trainings on the website. For that, you have to refer to your principal, correct? Right. And then finally, we talked about truancy. We talked about the social factors involved and what we have in place right now to address that as best as possible with SAY, restorative resources, and the addition of counselors. We talked about possibility of Saturday school, Bridge Academy, technology assessment and instruction, and yes, starting at the elementary level and how important that is. Let's see here. We're hoping with the new eSchools Plus, whatever it is that replaces that, we will have better data, more frequent tracking, which would aid in the end of absenteeism. And the fact that parents and guardians need to be much more deeply involved, and that has to do with, again, a counseling element that would we have to build upon. Mr. Cortopassi spoke about recognizing good attendance, emphasizing to students how important that is, making good attendance a cool thing, a good thing, not using it, not working the system to for cuts and things like that. Oh, and then we also got into a discussion about truancy and are we following our own policies. So we have a lot of progress to be made here, but it was a good meeting, and I agree with Ola, it was very positive, and we will be addressing those issues as we move forward. So now we're going to move on to, we're not going to do board member reports tonight. We're not going to have a CSBA and NSBA report tonight. We're going to move on to consent items.
Move item E2 through 8 and 10.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Gonzalez?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
And now we have, Laura, you've asked for item E9 to be pulled?
Yes. And so I had a couple of questions for Diane Kimura about this. For the summer extended learning opportunity, I was wondering if you could specifically address how we'll be meeting the needs of ELD students beyond migrant ed, because migrant ed is just for students who qualify for migrant ed, and I'm sure that the vast majority of our ELLs are not in migrant ed, so I was wondering if you could address that.
Yes, thanks, Director Gonzalez, for asking about this. ELD instruction is going to be embedded into all of instruction in our summer program. In addition to that, this last summer we piloted an actually ELD. Monica Baldnegro was instrumental in actual ELD 1 and 2 courses for secondary students that worked out very well. So we plan to now extrapolate that model and offer ELD courses in all of our programs.
Thanks, I appreciate that, because last year and it had come up in the DLAC meeting, and so the next time I go, I can report that back, that that will be there. Thanks, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Director Christoph? I need a motion.
Move approval of item E9.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Gonzalez?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our discussion action items. We're starting with F1, the Santa Rosa City Schools Equity and Social Justice Initiative. Superintendent Shields, you want to say anything?
President Jay?
Yes.
Superintendent Shields, members of the board, it gives me great pleasure to come before you with this actual board item. I'm also pleased to have with me tonight Elizabeth Evans, a coordinator in my office, as well as Oscar Chavez, representing the county. So we're going to get started here. So when we talk about the Equity and Social Justice Initiative, this actually began, and I know I bring this up a lot because I think it's important, the work that you did as a strategic plan body, that within that you had, a goal around balanced education that specifically talks about, I think, the beginnings of this work. Last year, you, as a board, most of you went to the County Office of Education and had the opportunity to hear Glenn Singleton as well, talking about these very issues. And at that time, you were very interested in pursuing more study into this. Then we also had the fortune, very great fortune, of having some of you attend the Museum of Tolerance, where there, again, things were brought up that you wanted to delve into deeper. In particular, I remember when we began talking about the actual data of Santa Rosa City Schools in relation to the work at the Museum of Tolerance. You wanted more. You wanted more information about what this data looks like. And I think at that time, too, the initial discussion around with the community members was around kind of what are we doing in our classes with regard to curriculum. And so all of this has come to the fruition, all has come about to now I think we are actually ready to really look at equity and social justice as an initiative in the district, continuing the work that has begun, and really taking a look at, as the slides that you have in front of you say, policy and practice. What does our policy say? What do our practices represent in terms of what we believe are equitable opportunities for all of our students. I think, too, that a part of accomplishing this is really taking a look at what currently exists, like really examining what exists in our system, and then identifying and understanding so that we can actually eliminate and move forward. And I will also say that we cannot do it alone. That Santa Rosa City Schools in isolation, it would be impossible. And that's why we have our community partner here, Oscar Chavez, because I did look at, and I have looked at, and I actually really like the Portrait of Sonoma. I think it is an awesome document that paints a picture county-wide of who we are, what we are, where we need to go. And so, Oscar, could you talk a little bit about how this really is a community conversation, and in particular, the Portrait of Sonoma?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. And I just want to say thank you to the superintendent and the board for extending the invitation to join you at the Museum of Tolerance as a community partner. I was very moved by that experience, and it really brought home the sense of urgency to act in our own community in addressing disparity, particularly in the areas where it impacts our student and their future success. As Diane mentioned, the Portrait of Sonoma is really our county's roadmap in addressing those disparities. And specifically, there's a lot of work in the agenda for action that prioritizes on-time graduation, that ensures that young children have the resources to get the right start when they start school, that we close the gap of our opportunity youth, meaning that for those students who don't graduate, what can we do to close that gap? So the Portrait of Sonoma is an important roadmap that outlines for us the disparities that impact our community. And I just want to underscore the point that Diane made, that schools can't do it alone. We recognize that, and communities can't do it alone. So we want to not only lend our support, but to be a partner with you in addressing the social determinants of health, the inequality that exists across multiple systems, and this recognition that we have to work collectively and together to address these systemic issues. Again, I've said it again, just to point out the sense of urgency. I was pulling and looking at some statistics for specifically young adults without a high school diploma for 2013. 23% of Latinos 19 to 24 do not have a high school diploma versus only 3% of white students. So we still have an enormous gap that is impacting our community, and given the changing demographics, we really have to address that gap, but we have to start as early as possible. And the portrait helps to identify how we can do that together and collectively. So we are here to lend our support and to acknowledge all of the wonderful work that you're doing to address equity in schools, because ultimately that's where we need to focus to have the greatest return on our educational investment. Thank you.
So Oscar described a little bit about why, and I think that along with the data that he provided, and I know you've seen these before, but we will probably use these over and over again, because it just illustrates, without even looking at the numbers and just looking at the bars, it illustrates the disparity between our Latino students and our white students, for example, in terms of meeting or exceeding standards for the SBAC. So this is for ELA. And then for mathematics, again, you can see the bars in terms of Hispanic versus white students, 16% versus 47% in terms of meeting or exceeding the standards for mathematics. And then this is just an overall look by grade level. Okay. And, you know, when we look at third grade and we can see a pattern already beginning to happen, then that's where we take a look at our policies and practices to determine, are we actually addressing what the needs are with the policies and practices that we have in place that currently exist. So what have we been doing? And so we wanted to actually give you some facts about what we're doing and then what the future holds for us. So I'm going to have Coordinator Evans take over here.
So we are very appreciative of the opportunities that we've had to pursue our exploration of equity and social justice through our trips to the Museum of Tolerance, and so thrilled that we have community partners who've joined us. We had our trips last year that we took, and then we've started this year. We had a group just last week go, and that was a combination of community partners and school district personnel. We have more trips planned for the Museum of Tolerance this school year. Currently, we have 6 more trips scheduled to the Museum of Tolerance, and we are projected to have had a total of 456 of our staff members and communities will have attended the Museum of Tolerance by the end of June. So we're really trying to get as many people as possible as are interested to attend the Museum of Tolerance trainings. You know, they're just such a meaningful activity. I mean, they're a very important professional development experience. So many of the community members we've got a number of community members who were unable to attend either last June 16th or in October of just this last week, and I've had many of them come to me and say, gosh, I couldn't go then, but I really want to go. So I'm hoping that we can include community in all of our trips, because I do think it's wonderful to have those community members there to share their perspective. So besides going to the Museum of Tolerance, we have also been partnering with CTA's Department of Civil Rights, and SRTA to provide unconscious bias training. And actually, they don't like to call it training. It's really more of an experience. It's a 2-day experience where you learn so much about how our brains work we don't even realize when we're being biased, but because of the way our brains have been programmed, and this wonderful workshop or experience led by a woman named Gail Watts, she's from the Office of Civil Rights at CTA, really helps you see in a very concrete way how bias works and how it works when you don't even realize you're being biased. And it's been very striking for the attendees to experience that. We have so far had 2 of those workshops, and we have 1, 2, 3, we have 6 more for the rest of this year. So we anticipate training or taking about 200 people through the unconscious bias training by the end of the year. We can only take 30 people per session. The Museum of Tolerance trips, we can take 30 to 40. So we really could take more than 456 by the end of June to the Museum of Tolerance. It just depends on our numbers.
And I would like to reiterate that the Museum of Tolerance trips, those are a grant. It's a grant funded, so which is a wonderful thing. And the CTA unconscious bias experience is actually free. And so the cost of those is really just for the substitutes. So CTA offers that as a free service, which I think is huge. So it doesn't stop with just these experiences and these trainings going to the Museum of Tolerance. It also includes the work that we need to continue to do. And so in your packet, you saw that we actually have 3 community trainings for community members who have attended the museum or unconscious bias training experience to come back together to continue the dialogue, continue the training, and continue the work. In addition, also for teachers and staff who attended the Museum of Tolerance or unconscious bias training, we also have an additional 3 days that we want to bring people together, again, to continue the work, continue the dialogue, and move forward in this initiative. And then I think we added on here that we have, there will be screenings of Paper Tigers, the movie Paper Tigers, and then we have purchased the documentary Facing Fear, which is Matthew Boger, who was our main speaker at It's About Time Too. And so we'll continue in that venue as well. So what are we looking at in terms of outcomes? As I said before, it's really taking a look at policies, and the policies that we want, we know that you want, that reflect equity and social justice. And when we talk about policies and practices, we're really talking about everything that in our system, staffing, curriculum, resource allocation, taking a look at how we are equitably allocating resources for equal outcomes. I think we've said that. And then also systems. How do we have systems that sustain that equitability? How we're looking at data. I think that was mentioned before, but how we're looking at data, how we're using it to inform instructions, which inform decisions, which I think it's easy to say that, but really it takes, in my mind, it really takes understanding and training to be able to look at the data and then come up with informed decisions based on that information to drive and change the policy and practices. And then this is, I think, super exciting in that, in the end, what we really want to have is an advisory committee to the superintendent around the issues of equity and social justice. And then we also want a district-wide committee made up of all different types of staff that are also providing feedback and information and growing and learning as we move forward with these changes in policies and practice. Again, nothing is in isolation, and we must do this together. And in doing so, then we have to open it up and have these dialogues, these very frank and maybe sometimes, difficult conversations. Which leads to the questions that, my beloved questions that are always posed in every one of our board reports. And that's, things I think that are very important to talk about or to bring up. And that's, and here, I don't normally like to read PowerPoints, but these are so important that I would like the audience to hear that. What do we do for children who don't fit in the comprehensive schools? And why And why do they have a specific profile? Are schools on the West equally successful in preparing students? Where are we standing on ethnic studies and teaching students about themselves? When will the curriculum reflect our students too, students of color? When will hiring practice match the demographics of our community? How do we make sure every school gets what it needs? Who graduates and who gets pushed out? These are really deep, deep questions that I think have to be talked about, have to be addressed in order for us to truly change policy and practice with regard to equity. And then what support and training would the board like in this area? What would you like to have happen? How can we prepare for this? And then what do you expect from us, from the leadership in implementing these potentially, controversial kinds of changes? It's different. We're going to look hard at data and the disparities that are happening in our community. And we as a school and as a community organization are going to come together and we want to resolve this. We want to make the changes. What can we do? What do you expect of us, all of us? And what can we do in order to prepare the board? So those are questions. And then finally, this was not in your packet, but I just recently went to the PBIS National Conference in Chicago, and there was a workshop on equity as it related specifically to positive behavior intervention, or our Best Plus. And this was, the challenge is not a small number of twisted white supremacists, but something infinitely more subtle and complex. People who believe in equality, but who act in ways that perpetuates bias and inequality. And this is Nicholas Kristof, and I know that you've seen, it's actually the same, seen other articles by this gentleman as well, which I think are very, very thought-provoking. So with that, I leave it up to the board to respond to any questions or requests that you may have.
Any questions or comments?
Hey, Laura had her
Jen?
hand up first.
Who?
Director
Laura?
Gonzalez.
Okay. Thank you. It was an interesting, I can't think, sorry, report. There were a lot of things that came up for me, and I won't belabor by going through all of them, but I did really like your questions. I'll start from there. I really did like your questions about what the community asks, and there were a few of them especially that focus really on students of color. And I think that this is an important discussion to have. I think it's also a difficult discussion to have because you weren't here, but perhaps you've read articles, but when we closed Doyle Park School to make the French charter school, some of these discussions actually happened. Unfortunately, the whole context of the discussions was a really heated topic. But I think it was still interesting, the discussions that we had and the responses that we got from a lot of parents in some of the articles because of what happened. There was a series of articles in the Press Democrat about this topic, and a lot of parents, well, I should say white parents, came across very defensive in some of the articles because they talked about going to different schools where there was a high minority population. Obviously, in our case, it's Latino. That started, and it was pretty contentious, and my hope is at this time that we can actually discuss these things in a less contentious manner, and hopefully because of, it's a different time period right now. But I thought these questions were pretty interesting and again, really honest, and I guess that surprised me when I looked at this because sometimes I'm really still surprised when we start to have honest conversations about race and demographics and so forth. And I think that sometimes, and I'm going to kind of meander here, this came up too. I went on the last training to the Museum of Tolerance, which was very interesting and was very, I felt like I learned a lot and in ways that I wasn't expecting. And so that's always good, maybe a little uncomfortable, but and this weekend also I had some training with CTA, kind of somewhat along similar lines as well. And I think that one thing I really want people to understand, I think with looking at some of these questions about ethnic studies, teaching students about themselves, curriculum reflecting students of color, hiring practices that match the demographics. And I think that some people might be like, well, we're focusing a lot on a certain group of kids, and they can learn, what I learned as a child, and I think some things we need to understand that perhaps what I would refer to as the majority community perhaps doesn't understand. For instance, if you grew up, I think, in the United States and you're not white, I don't think you necessarily understand how you were. If you are white, if you grew up here, that you are totally reflected in our curriculum, and that students of color aren't. And I think that that's not to put anybody down, but it's just you're not going to notice it as much. And for instance, my own little story, I grew up in San Francisco in the Excelsior district, and I didn't have a Latino teacher until I was in high school. And I noticed this because there was nobody who looked like me. There was nobody who reflected me in school. And I remember one particular time in second grade, we had a sub one day, and I lined up, and there was this man there, and he was obviously Mexican looking. He was dark skinned, he had dark hair, he smelled like Tres Flores, for those of you who are familiar with that. And I was like, wow, he looks like my family. He looks like somebody like me. And I was very curious, and I asked him, well, are you Mexican? Are you Mexican? And I'm sure now, looking back at it as an adult, you're probably like, what is with this kid? And finally he said, yes, I am. And that was that. And I don't remember any of the day. I don't remember how good of a teacher he was. But finally, I felt like, wow, I was somebody there who looked like me, and reflected me. And I think that people don't understand how important that is. Or if you only have people at your school who are janitors or so forth, and they do an important job, but you begin to think that that's all that we do. So I think this is really important. And I think that a lot of people just don't understand that. And my hope is that people will begin to understand that. I also know that it's hard to hire because we don't have as many people going into education as we used to, first of all. So it's much harder to get people, teachers of color, at all. And of course, this is not to say that white teachers can't be good teachers to students of color, but I think there is an added dimension there that we need to be aware of. I also wanted to go back, and when you talked about data, data is important, obviously, but my concern is that we don't just use limited data like just the SBAC. And I know that here you have it because it's easy and it was the last test we took, but looking at things through multiple lenses is always important, not just one. And the other thing too I wanted to address, that when we look at data, we have to disaggregate it and look at all the little pieces. For instance, I know Oscar mentioned, I think you said 24% of, pardon? 23% of Latino adults do not have a high school diploma, right?
Of 19 through 24.
19 to 24, okay. Well, the part of that is we have to look at is in Sonoma County, a large percentage of Latinos are foreign-born. And it's 40 some odd percent of Latinos are foreign-born. So I would not expect that many foreign-born, Mexicans in particular, to have high school diplomas. Because that's not our demographic here in the county. So I think we also need to be careful about how we look at things and disaggregate out those sort of things so that we're really looking at what's real, and I mean, not to say that that's not real, but what we can control, what is part of what we need to look at. Obviously if they're educated in a different country, that's something else. But I really appreciate, again, having this opportunity to go down to LA. It was a long, hard weekend. It was very intense. But I very much felt like I learned something, and that's what's most important. And I think Stephanie Rivas, Graham Rivas, was very good in leading us on discussions, and she hit a lot of truth again. And so it's very, very, again, very empowering for me, very positive that we're starting to have these conversations. And I can't tell you how much I really appreciate it. And I will not be able to make the first meeting with Kakansa, because it's on my birthday and I have other plans. But I hope to try and make some of the other ones. And I would really love to go to one of the CTA trainings, but I really doubt it's going to happen this year because I've already been out a bit. But too bad you're not on the board of my district anymore, Mr. Chavez, because I would say that we need to have CTA training there too. So thank you very much.
Jen?
All right, thank you. Thank you for the report and for the thoughtful questions you pose. You always do a great job at that. And I want to thank you and also just kind of the whole administration, I think, for your focus on equity and the fact that I think you are looking through a lens of equity in almost, in all of our decisions, which, if we're not doing that, then we're just perpetuating inequities, even if that's unintended. So I really appreciate that. I think it's really important. One of the things that I think it's important that we do is educate our entire district population about the fact that when we're talking about closing achievement gaps or opportunity gaps or creating or trying to minimize inequities, that's not done at the expense of other kids. I think when there's a lot of focus on bringing up the performance of some kids, that some people erroneously believe that might be at the expense at high-performing kids or at the to their detriment somehow. And I think this experiment has been done many times, and the results don't show that. It shows that everybody benefits. And obviously, I'm not talking about grades only, but there are obviously social gains to be made when we are focusing on equity for all kids. But I think that's really important. I think it's important because parents often focus on their own kid, and so they might look at our work in one area and think, okay, well, that's great for those kids, but what does that do for my kid? And I think it's important that they know that it's not to their kid's detriment and that it's good for the entire community. And so that we can really make sure that we have support from the entire community for this very important, crucial work that we do. And so I really support all of this work that you do and look forward to being part of it when I can and seeing the great results that we will have moving forward.
Bill and then Larry.
Two comments. One, continue to work at a breadth level within the community. I mean, obviously, this community has, through Portrait of Sonoma and a lot of the efforts, got a better education of the imperative that is there. But let's not sit on that and assume that we've gotten to everybody, because that hadn't happened. And so it's a beginning, it's a surface, but it's a constant education requirement. And you can't convince somebody to go along on words, sayings. You have to do it on data. And that's the second point. My feeling is until this group has been put together that is in administration that's moving forward and doing this work, that a lot of times we got data at the board level that was perceived to be what we wanted to hear. And so I would tell you that I have no interest, and I don't think there's anybody on the board who has interest in having anything other than the hardcore truth data for two reasons. One is it becomes easier for us to understand and to see our way clear as leaders as to what needs to happen. But two, it's a heck of a lot easier for us to bring people along that wouldn't necessarily think that that's the case or think that there's an issue. To Laura's point, if you don't have the point of reference, sometimes it's very difficult to understand what that is. And data in our society in the last few years has become a very accepted way to analyze. And it's accepted throughout business. It's accepted throughout a number of areas of our lives. And so the more ammunition that we have with good, clean data, the better we're in a position to support what needs to be accomplished. So I think you guys know that. I think you've been pretty clear about the fact that when you first came in here, that you saw those deficiencies. But if for any reason you don't believe the board wants to hear that, I've never heard anybody, and I don't think anybody on the board will suggest otherwise, that we want anything other than that. And so I think it's important to publicly say that you understand that that's the case, because I think you do, but that the community understands that as well. I think that's pretty critical.
Larry.
I really appreciate your report, and Oscar's so right. The schools can't do it alone. It has to be a community effort. And so I look at the third grade results, and that is so key to me. We know that when kids fall behind early like that, it's very difficult to catch up. So I'd like a little more information on the students that have pre-K, how they are doing as we follow through, because they get the benefit of pre-K, and I've talked to pre-K teachers and kindergarten teachers, and there's such a difference for a child who's gone through pre-K. And then secondly, as we reach out to the parents, because we also know the educational level of parents is a vast determiner of how far their children actually go in school, or it's an indicator. And I'm wondering, what can we do as a community to try to have universal pre-K, preschool? I know the county supervisors are thinking about it. I think it's a key to success, along with some other things, but we know the benefits of pre-K, and can we form through CSBA a statewide coalition or that we can somehow eventually achieve that? I think if you invest early, your money is well invested, and will reap the rewards. On the tail end, you don't get the bang from the buck, and we know that. So those are my comments, and thank you again for the report. And I did think the Museum of Tolerance was a great experience, and I look forward to the continuing discussions.
Thank you for the report, and just a couple comments. One is that later tonight we have a presentation on transitional kindergarten and early childhood education. We will actually speak to much greater detail that issue, because certainly early childhood education is important, an important investment for us, an important investment for our community. There are things we can do, notwithstanding what the county is going to be willing to do in terms of alternative measures of funds for investment in early childhood education, but certainly some ways that we might think about prioritizing our district dollars and ensuring that our children who need it in particular have experience and exposure to early childhood education. First, of course, maximizing what has been an incredibly successful program with transitional kindergarten, but also thinking about partnerships outside of that would hit even earlier than 4 years old. I do want to appreciate the board and our entire district really for grappling with the issue of educating the entire populace, right? We have both pressures on us, one, to do right for individual children by their parent, but public education also holds the burden of the social good, the common good for all of the community, and we really do that with our partners. But it is incredibly important that we think about the strength of the entire community, and that any weak links within that create really a detriment for the greater society and a great, I hate to get so, but really the nation as a whole. The health of our community really reflects the health of our state and the health of our nation as a whole. And it is a precarious position to be in, to weigh all of those can seem to be competing interests against one another, when knowing that the strongest educational system, public education system for our community, is the best answer for every blight. I think, as the portrait of Sonoma so accurately describes and gives us a platform to talk about, they really are so interconnected, and that education, public education in particular for us, really is our best investment. And very early ages, so thank you to First Five and the investments they do from 0 to 5. But for us, starting with 4-year-olds, really kind of what we can do and how we maximize that. But thank you, board, for your courage to just stand in this, because we don't know the answers. We don't have a single policy. There's not one thing we're going to suggest or do that all of a sudden will change anything, and no policy alone will change if our mindset hasn't changed, and we don't believe as a system this is the right thing to do for all children. So there isn't a roadmap. We have to really devise that together, and that will be uncomfortable conversations, even perhaps these ones next week where people come together. Who knows where they'll go? We don't know. We don't have a prediction. There are some things that we agree on in that the predictability of the data is a problem in terms of ethnic group, in terms of socioeconomics. So what can we do to disrupt that? That really is the heart of the question. How do we disrupt outcome data? How do we change the inputs we have to really get something different, whether it's the SBAC, whether it's the CST, whether it's the SAT? The trends are the same about who does well, and who is not doing as well, and what are we willing to do differently to change those predictable outcomes. So thank you, Diane. Thank you, board, for engaging in this with us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Seeing no other comments or questions, I couldn't wrap it up better myself, so thank you very much for all your comments. And Mr. Chavez, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Great report. Okay, now we'll move on to F2, which is College and Career Centers update. Ms. Kitamura. Oh, and Bettini.
It was at 4. We asked a couple of things, I guess.
President Jay, Superintendent Shields, members of the board, we are absolutely thrilled to bring this report tonight to you. And I would be remiss if I did not, and I know she's heard a lot about this, but I'm going to say it one more time. When I came aboard a little over 2 years ago, and I had this director named Debbie Bettini, fresh from Elsie Allen High School, about a year out, I saw such great potential, and I am telling you, and I assure you, that potential has been realized and then some. So it gives me great pleasure to turn this over to Debbie to present this report.
Good evening, President Jay, Superintendent Shields, and members of the board. It gives me great pleasure to give you an update on the College and Career Center. Before we begin, I would like to invite our college and career counselors that were able to make it this evening. I'd like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves officially to the board, as well as to the rest of the public that's viewing the board meeting tonight.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Jones. I'm the new college and career counselor at Santa Rosa High School. I'm very excited to be here. I'm a Sonoma County native, actually, and just returning after almost 17 years out of state and out of country. So it's a very perfect time to come back to do the work that I love to do. So thank you.
I'm Barry Sullivan. I'm the college and career counselor at Pioneer High School. I'm very happy and thrilled. We have our grand opening tomorrow. We're very excited about that, also a little bit nervous. But I want to thank the board, Diane and Debbie, for the opportunity to do. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to Pioneer High School.
Members of the board, my name is Rick Paulo, and I'm a new LCAP College and Career Counselor at Montgomery High School. Today was our opening, and I thank the members of the board who were there today and Superintendent Shields for attending. It was a fabulous opening, and I'm very grateful for being an employee of Santa Rosa City Schools and this career counseling initiative.
Thank you. After receiving input from various stakeholders on the Local Control Accountability Plan, the district is now moving forward with implementing college and career centers in each of our 5 comprehensive high schools during the school year. As you met a few of our college and career counselors today, I'd like to note that each center is staffed with a full-time certificated counselor, as they're listed up there on the board. We also have a part-time college and career counselor to provide additional college and career services to students and families at Ridgeway High School as well. In addition to working with our sites on their single plan for student achievement, or their SIPSAs, and LCAP alignment, we are also working with Innovate Ed to assist us with the successful development of our college and career centers. We're really focusing on support systems, school-wide priorities, as well as identifying focus areas for implementation. Most recently, we went down to El Monte Unified School District, and we visited a college and career centers down in that area, and we discussed with their college and career counselors best practices and really how to develop a systematic approach to providing services and resources to our students and families district-wide. I can't speak on behalf of the team, but I think that it was definitely a beneficial visit, and it provided a lot of insight to some of the different things that we could look at, implementing here within our school district. As Superintendent Shields mentioned in her report, very exciting, we had representatives from the Student Voice Collaborative actually demo the furniture that if you go out to visit the centers tomorrow, you'll see furniture that the students provided input on. And probably one of the most rewarding things that I saw last week was out at Santa Rosa High School. One of the students that was a part of that, that process, looking at the furniture and really looking at flexible spaces, she walked into Jerry's center and she was looking around and she's like, wow, like they listened. And so it was just really neat to get to see, and so powerful to get to see that she just took a lot of pride in, the furniture that was, put in the centers was because of their input. So I thought that that was very powerful. So I wanted to definitely share that with the board. In addition to all the different great things that we're doing to get the centers up and going, we do have a survey that's available for students and families to complete. It's in English and Spanish on the homepage of the district website, and it's going to be available until November 13th. So I would definitely encourage individuals to take a look at that, because we really want to hear feedback from our students and from our families, our parents, in regards to what types of resources and services that really can be addressed in these centers. In addition to the items I just mentioned, to assist us with the development of our college and career centers, we actually formed a college and career center implementation team this year, and it consists of our college and career counselors, post-secondary, and community partners. You can see we have representatives ranging from the Workforce Investment Board, the CT Foundation, 10,000 Degrees, SAY. We just have a really great group of individuals here to assist us in making sure that these centers are a success. This team is providing us input and guidance surrounding the types of services offered, potential partnerships, and resources for each of the centers. We had our first meeting in September, and then we have our next meeting next week, where we'll be discussing the current resources and services our partners provide already in Sonoma County, and how we can leverage those and combine them in order to develop basically a college and career calendar for our district. In addition to opening the college and career centers, all 7th through 12th grade students will now have Naviance accounts. And Naviance is an online college and career academic platform designed to assist students with career exploration, academic planning, and college and career preparation. The district received career and academic planning software funding from the Sonoma County Office of Education through the Northern California Career Pathways and Alliance Initiative to assist with the cost of purchasing these students' accounts. So it's a great partnership we have with SCO and through that grant initiative. Secondary counselors participated in a Naviance training in August. Additional trainings were provided at the It's About Time 2 training, and the Sonoma County Office of Education is also providing Naviance trainings as well. So not only are our college and career counselors trained in Naviance, our secondary counselors are trained in Naviance, and then our vice principals are actually participating in the training as well that SCO is offering. The LCAP college and career counselors will be providing support to secondary sites with utilizing Naviance. So not only will they be working with their home sites, but they'll be working with their corresponding feeder middle schools, their necessary smalls, and really working in collaboration with their site administrators, as well as the current existing secondary counselors, in order to not only implement the college and career center, but also support the implementation of Naviance. And as you know, we are having our grand openings this week, and I am just so overwhelmed with joy and excitement to be a part of this. And I'm going to try not to get emotional, which is probably not going to happen, but we've just had 3 successful grand openings, and I just want to thank the board for all of your support. I'm just really excited that we're going to be providing these services and these resources to our students and our families. And so I thank you for that. I'm very proud of our team here and just very grateful. It takes a village to get something like this going. And I just, from maintenance to purchasing to technology to Diane, Socorro, I mean, the board, I mean, it's just, I am just so blessed to have had this opportunity and this experience, and I can't thank you enough, and invite everyone to come join us at these wonderful events and grand openings. So thank you.
So everybody heard that, because when we were planning and the openings were going to be this week, I think we thought we were maybe a little crazy. But
Yeah.
I do want to tell this because I don't think Debbie will. But the furniture that's in the college and career centers was actually caught up in the mudslide on the Grapevine and held up. We did not know, she did not know, the council didn't know if that furniture would even arrive. And lo and behold, it's there.
Yes.
So just a testament. I think it's just a sign at how ready we are for these college and career centers to support every single one of our students. And so we thank the board for their support of the LCAP and the support of this great work for this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, well, wait, first of all, I just want to comment on the furniture, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of the board. One of the advantages of being president and having control of the sound system. Maria Carrillo High School, I got there about 15 minutes early, and there was this older couple in there. I thought maybe their grandchild or something attended the school. The wife is a retired teacher, and she taught for 32 years in the Bellevue district. But talking about the furniture getting caught up, her husband said to me, he goes, you know, I was over here all yesterday trying to get that desk together in time. And, and he said, you know, it's one of these things where he said there were 52 pins that had to go into this thing to hold it all together. I said, well, do you want me to go over and touch it? He said, no, I prefer if you didn't. So, I mean, he was joking, but it was really nice to go to Maria Carrillo High School after I had already been to Elsie's and to see the similarity in, they were all identical, all the furniture is identical, but then the different ideas of how the counselors put their rooms together. And then the other thing that both schools had in common were the students lined up waiting to get in. You know, because there was a ribbon cutting with all us adults and the counselors and things, but the students were lined up like, what is going on in there? We want to get in there. So it was just all so positive, so wonderful. And I know that at both Elsie and Maria Carrillo High School, there are also parents involved through this whole process and came to the ribbon cutting as well. So it was just a total feel-good, successful opening. And the other thing I liked about it is it demonstrated that this board listened, and we heard loud and clear what not only our parents wanted, but what our students wanted. So their voice was really loud and well received. So I'd like to turn it over to my board members, and does anybody want to comment or have questions? Jen?
Thank you. Thanks for the report, but really thank you for these awesome centers. I mean, I was just at the Elsie grand opening, and you know, there was the ribbon cutting and the drumline came, and that was exciting. But the ribbon cutting really was for the adults. And the kids were just like at lunch. But then as soon as we were done with that, they all just like piled in and in a very comfortable way. Like it was, which is exactly what you want. You want them to just be comfortable hanging out in there. And there was so much good information in there. It was so well set up, but at the same time had such a homey feel. Already kids were hanging out. They're going to be hanging out in there. They're going to get a lot of good information. And it's so responsive to exactly what kids and parents ask for. You can't talk to a high school kid or a parent without them asking for exactly what you ended up giving to them. And even when the last 2 years, Director Jay and 1 year Director Hanel and I listened to the Tomorrow's Leaders Today kids in here, and every single one of them, when you said, you know, what do you think the schools need to do more of, they said, basically, we need this career and college center. And we talk a lot about kids who have parents who are not college going, about how they have sort of a detriment in terms of planning for college. Well, this was a whole group of kids who mostly had college-educated parents, and they all said, our parents don't know anything. They have no idea what to do. And so, you know, the process is complicated. And so for then our kids who don't have college-educated parents, it's especially so. So this is such a really wonderful resource. And I just really congratulate you for such a great job. It's really cool.
Director Christoph.
It was very enjoyable today, and but I can tell you, it was about this time last year in the LCAP meetings when parents were saying to me very directly, we need to have career centers. And to think of where we are today, starting with that conversation, or maybe it was a monologue, I can't remember exactly. But the process is something that I would say is something to be very proud of. And it really does take a village. And this is, you know, when people listen, people work together. I think the fruits of our labor will be phenomenal in the next few years. I look forward to seeing how, you know, how it works out. So, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming here and for all the work you're doing. And it's only just beginning for you counselors, so good luck. Okay, now we're moving on to an update on transitional kindergarten early childhood development.
Good evening, President Jay. Oh,
It's
wow.
okay.
I'm
You're tired.
tired. I am
know.
tired. And also, that was really emotional and beautiful.
Yes, it was.
Superintendent Shields, board members, good evening. I'm here tonight with Director Kelly Dillon and Coordinator Lori Flanagan. And also, we have in attendance 3 of our transitional kindergarten teachers. I hope they do a little shout out: Tammy Fink, Erin Patterson, and Michelle Meislin. I appreciate them being here tonight to support us. So we're going to take you through a little update about where we are with our TK program, and as Superintendent Shields talk a little bit about our early childhood offerings and also some hopefully possible partnerships as we move forward, and also some change in policy. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of transitional kindergarten. 4 years ago, the law changed, and kindergartners need to turn age 5 by December 2nd of the school year. And over the last couple years, that has gone down each month. And so this year was September 2nd. So it used to be that kindergartners in California were actually really starting quite early. And as you know, over the last 10 years, the academic demands of kindergarten have increased. And so that, given this opportunity with this new law and being able to have basically 2 years of kindergarten, really gives students a strong foundation.
Never been here before, so I don't know how this works.
I'm sorry. Lori's new to us.
So thank you for listening to us tonight. So due to these higher academic demands, there was a law passed, as you know, September 30th of 2010. And the law basically made 2 major changes. So the required birth date for admittance changed for both kindergarten and first grade. And it also established the transitional K program. And the main purpose of this program, as you know, was to have a 2-year kindergarten program which would better prepare students for success in their future academic career.
So you can see above sort of the current age admittance for kindergarten and first grade for this year. We'll talk a little bit about how that changed in July.
Okay, so a few things to note about the implementation of this process was that we needed to provide, every district needed to provide a TK program, and they needed to have the same regulations and policies as the kindergarten program. Also, it was very important that we have credentialed teachers teaching in those programs. Attendance in TK and kindergarten is not mandatory, and the program for TK needed to be 3 to 4 hours long. Let's see. Also, there was flexibility in the implementation. We could have any number of TK classes. They could be combo classes and looping classes.
So currently, these are our current TK classes in our district. You can see there's an asterisk next to if there is a combination class, we do offer an instructional aid. You'll notice that the Arts Charter is not on here. As you know, they were landlocked and it was challenging, so they were offered space in other transitional kindergartens. When they moved to their new location, which is really their old location on Humboldt Street, they will have room for a transitional kindergarten classroom, which is exciting. But you can see that the class size is 24:1, and so we're doing quite well with our TK classes. Director Dillon's going to talk a little bit about some of our community partnerships.
All right, good evening. So we are really pleased to have some partners in the community to support us in kindergarten readiness, and one of them is the United Way of the Wine Country. We were very appreciative last year when they offered us kindergarten or school readiness backpacks to the 5 TK classes at our Schools of Hope schools. So those backpacks include reading books, a pencil pouch with a CD, scissors, an activity book, a USDA like My Plate to talk about, healthy eating. So just a variety of resources to help parents. This year, because we received the Wine Country Weekend Fund the Future grant, which is funding a program that we're calling Links to Literacy, one part of that 3-part program was actually purchasing from United Way of the Wine Country a school readiness backpack for every single Kinder Academy student in our district. So every child represented on that previous slide is receiving a backpack this year.
And I do want to give a quick shout out to our superintendent, who I believe assisted with helping pack those backpacks.
All right, one of our other partners in the community is the Department of Human Services. We are in our 2nd year, Santa Rosa City Schools is, in participating in the READY initiative or pilot. We are one of many districts participating in this, and this program really is about looking at kindergarten readiness and piloting a variety of different assessments that might help us to better gauge where students are coming in when they enter our kindergarten and Kinder Academy classes. And so districts outside of Santa Rosa School District are participating, and part of that is also our participation on a READY team, which includes not only the 2 teachers from Steel Lane and Monroe, which are the 2 piloting schools, their administrators as well as a variety of community members. So we have folks from 4Cs, the county office, folks that run their own home child care programs, working on a READY team to really look at the data and then make an action plan. Last year, that action plan was a parent night for incoming kindergarten students, which was well received. And this year, looking at the data, we're adjusting as we do when we look at new data, and actually at the beginning stages of planning some parent workshops at each of those sites to support and resource parents.
I just want to reiterate how important this partnership is, because what has happened historically is there are 2 very separate systems. There's the K-12, and then there's whatever happens beforehand. And what this space, the county is doing through efforts of First 5 and the county itself, but really focusing a space where they can understand, where other providers, these early childhood educators, can understand the language we speak. When we mean kindergarten ready, what are we saying? Because we've had 2 different versions really of what kindergarten readiness looks like, what they think kindergarten readiness looks like, and what we think kindergarten readiness looks like. So having us all in the room together and growing these relationships is really critical, and it's both child center-based EC, but also some home-based EC, and all these different providers who are doing this work get to kind of really learn what we mean by kindergarten ready, and that I think is really powerful and goes back to what Director Hanel was speaking about early, that investment in early childhood education. It is in some ways outside of our purview, but in some ways we have great influence in terms of what's going on, how that happens, how that looks to give our children the best foot as they enter on day one into our TK or K program. So I think it's incredibly important we're part of that voice in terms of what it looks like, because we also have, and Cradle to Career work really reveals this, every district kind of defines kindergarten readiness different. We all use different assessments, now kind of hopefully more aligned, but it could be very different in the city of Santa Rosa because we have so many elementary districts of what each provider would be getting ready for in terms of when they start day one in the K-12 system or TK-12 system. So great work with that.
Great, thank you.
So in really just talking about that, we do sort of have different partnerships for some early childhood offerings. We will be taking on 3 Head Start classrooms at Comstock starting in 2016, and it's exciting because it will be serving 56 students. Lincoln Elementary School is serving 40 students, and that Head Start has been there actually since 1990, which is actually quite impressive. And then part of Ridgeway High School, there's the infant parent program, which can serve up to 8 to 9 infants. We do have a state grant, and so utilizing that, we do offer some early childhood offerings, preschool programs at both Monroe and Steele Lane. And then, as you know, with our partnership with CAP Sonoma, we are offering Avance and Pasitos. I'm very excited about both programs, but it's very exciting because we've really expanded Pasitos at our elementary schools. And again, it's just about building partnerships with our families and also bringing them into our schools so that they have an opportunity to see what our schools look like, they get comfortable with that, and also parents are having an opportunity to be educated as well, especially in the Avance class. I also want to say that we are having some initial conversations. Coordinator Flanagan and I met with Yolanda Garcia from the JC, who runs their children's center there, about how we can bridge relationships with them and work together. And so as part of the work in K-6, we do have a TK day where we're bringing all of our TK teachers together on the 10th of November, and we've asked the JC Children's Center to come in and talk and just listen and start laying some foundational pieces about what they're doing and what we're doing, so they really understand sort of how we can move forward to be together. And then also hopefully looking down the road is how we can then build that even with teachers at Sonoma State. So it's new, but it's exciting, and you know, sky's the limit.
So now I'm going to talk about the new law that was just started in July. This new law allows districts to admit students younger, so admission to TK at the beginning of the school year, all the way through if they turn 5 anytime during that school year. So some important pieces of information that go along with this law are that, 1, it needs to be in the best interest of the child, and we also need to inform the parents of both the disadvantages and advantages of starting a program like this. Also, average daily attendance would not be counted, the students would not be counted for average daily attendance until they turn 5. So if we take them in before, then we wouldn't be getting average daily attendance money from them.
So if you, so if you look in part of your packet, you can see where we sort of line some suggestions regarding how we would amend our current board policy, and Lori will take us through that.
So the first part on page 21, circle page 21, If you look, there's about halfway down the page, there's a line through the two pieces that refer back to past years. So the suggestion would be to take those out because they're outdated, no longer needed. Same with what's now number 1 was number 3. So just updating that. Then the new law, we were looking at having some prioritization. So December 3rd and January 2nd, if the students turn 5 between those dates, that would be kind of a first priority. We would fill with them. And then if we still had space, we would fill with the students whose birthdays were January 3rd through January 31st.
This way we take our existing transitional kindergartners and just fill them as where there is space. And as you see on the previous slides, we do have space in some of our TKs.
Okay, and then at the very bottom of the page, it's just an addition of informing parents, because that's part of the law. And then also the top of the next page, a sentence about it being in the best interest of students. We want to make sure that we know that it's in their best interest by giving them an assessment.
So like we would do with all board policies, this would come back to you for a vote, but these are just some suggestions. At this time, we would take any questions from the board based upon our presentation tonight.
Director Kristoff.
She looked to the left. We'll go for you first.
Oh, goodness.
All right, Ron, if that's fine, great. I'll fire off. Thank you. Let's go sort of in reverse order. The new law, it says that the governing board of the district or the governing body determines that the admittance is in the best interest of the child. The policy that we're changing will say that eligible children will be assessed to determine developmental readiness prior to being admitted to the program. Do we have to do that? Are you going to have to give us a consent item with respect to that, or do we have the ability to turn that over to the people who really ought to make that assessment? And is this requirement that something that we need to put into in here, that we as a board find that if the professionals make this determination? What satisfies the law?
The board would empower staff to make that decision through its approved policy.
Okay.
I think that's if you were to do it on a base by base, like,
Yeah.
or case by case, every time that there was a child who came in. I think that if we write it in to say that during the assessment and making sure that we inform parents and that they fill into these 3 criteria of age, that we as staff, all staff, would then could make that determination.
Okay, well, it seems to me, if that's the answer to it, it seems to me that it's got to show up in the policy, that we do that we
Okay,
empower.
so we can add
The last
that.
thing in the world we want to do is make that determination. So, okay.
Okay.
Second, if we do this, we don't get the money for them. So the intent of the policy here is to say if there's room.
Correct.
Correct. So that there would be no fiscal impact because we've already paid for
The teacher.
the teacher.
Correct.
Is it also fair to say under fiscal impact, it says that we get ADA for this. Is it fully funded? Are there any costs that we're incurring for TK that we're not getting from the state, that we're having to pick up from the general fund?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Okay, well, the question is, how much does it cost us to run the TK
Well,
program?
we are getting it. We are getting the ADA. We may not get it this year, but we'll get it the next year.
Okay, so the question is, what's the overall cost to run the TK program, and how much do we get funded? So is it fully funded? Is it something that's less than fully funded, and we're having to support it in some fashion? I don't understand that.
It's fully funded.
Okay, so we're confident that whatever the entire cost of this is, facility-wise, teacher-wise, et cetera, is taking on its weight.
I would say yes and no as a new program. I mean, because it's not a, I think I caution us to use the word program. It's not a program, it's a new grade level.
Right.
Right, so it's, there were initial startup costs, probably buying new furniture and equipment that we might not have had before, and things like that. We've decided to make the investment in the combo class. That's an additional, but that as a grade level, I mean, we have different instructional aids, so I don't know how we would compare it to other grades that are covering the cost or not covering the cost when they contribute to general fund dollars and are drawing down general fund dollars as well.
Okay. You raised combo classes. We have a couple of them
We have
with
two.
differentiated instruction, and Michelle's here. Does that work? I'm sorry?
She just got her aid today.
You got your instructional aid today, so it's a little early to figure out whether this works, because that has been a concern in the past, and I think it would be really helpful after a period of time to get an understanding of how that's working, and if that isn't working, what needs to be done, what's the cost to do it differently, because that exists in a couple of places. It indicates also in the Readiness Act that the teacher should have early childhood experience. Do all of our teachers have that? Or are we having difficulty getting folks relative to that?
So that's part of the conversation with the JC in Sonoma State, is making sure that we ensure that teachers from now on who take transitional kindergarten positions have that certificate degree. So that's part of, that's part of the reason why they're very much interested in having this conversation, to see how they can support that.
Okay. And are all of our facilities sufficient?
Yes.
Really? Yes? I'm getting nods up. Well, there we go. There we go. I got some honesty up there.
I mean, we have classrooms
Right.
for the TK and also for the TKK combination. So they're not having to share classrooms, so they do have designated classrooms.
And they don't have different code requirements like early childhood
Correct.
education does. Now,
Correct.
could we have better furniture, better equipment? I mean, always, but.
As this potentially expands, do you see any potential facility issues?
Well, that's why we have a facilities master plan, right? So we're able to look at the facilities needs of all of our sites to make sure that we are adhering to our needs.
Right. And do you anticipate that there will be facility demands relative to expansion of TK?
Well, I think, again, it also depends on the numbers of who's signing up for TK, right? So at this point, outside of the French, I don't think we have had the need for more than one TK.
Right.
That could change over time. It also could change maybe with new law if they change the law again. So at this time, we're holding okay.
I support the policy change. I'd like to make sure that whatever responsibility the board has to delegate gets stuck into the policy in whatever fashion that it needs. I support that we, if we have space available, to allow those kids to come in, if the professionals say that those kids are ready. That's in my mind, that is not anything we're dealing with. You guys know what you're doing.
We'll bring it back in November. We'll make sure we have those changes.
You guys have done a wonderful job of getting this up and running, and I don't know how other districts have done on it, but I'm just really satisfied at the level of import that this has had and the amount of effort that's gone into making sure this works. I think this has the potential of creating the base that we need on a long-term basis, and giving a lot of kids a chance that they otherwise wouldn't have. So I think there's some real positive aspects of this. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Director Christoff.
Thank you for the report. This is a very interesting area, and I think we're all in that place where we are acknowledging how important it is to reach children as young as we possibly can. And actually, I read a very, very interesting piece of writing in this month's Scientific American, and it's in my digital edition. But I would have sent it to the superintendent, except that they wanted to charge me for it, so she did not get a copy of that. But I'll try and get a paper copy to her. It is research that has been done, and this is a comment on how important it is to maybe even reach down further in terms of age and learning if we are going to level that playing field. But the essence of the article was called Baby Talk, and they have conclusive research now that babies at age 6 months can recognize many different phonemes. And of the 7,000 languages in the world today, if they are exposed to these phonemes and on a regular basis, they could learn the sounds, to recognize sounds as languages as diverse as Chinese and Swahili and English, and And so the more they are exposed to this, the better chance they have of language acquisition and many language acquisitions. And, but the real crux of it for me was that you can't learn it from an audio tape. You can't learn it from a TV screen.
Right.
It has to do with the intonation of human contact that reinforces and teaches these babies the ability to absorb this language, and they recognize differences. I mean, they can't speak, of course, but it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of research. But what it says to me is we need to look earlier than what we're doing if we're going to, somehow in our intervention, somehow in the way we educate our children. So I'll make sure I get a copy of that article to you. Okay. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to thank the board. I sit on the First Five Commission, and even just this week we were talking about it, but I think one of the important parts of that is us being a contributing partner to the community. The First Five really does carry the weight of educating and the community and resources 0 to 5, particularly 0 to 3. And there are lots of ways like how we are helping facilitate the Head Start and Even Start programs on our campuses. It's not us necessarily providing that service, but allowing that service to be provided for our families who need it. One of the most effective programs that First Five does is the Nurse-Family Partnership, where the nurses go and work with high-risk families, high-need families to build those strategies for early learning and the importance of maternal and familial contact with very young newborns and growing newborns. And I think how we make sure that families in need get hooked up to the right resources in the community. Again, it won't always be us providing it, particularly to the very, very, very young, unless it's special education and we have the legal obligation of the child fund. But how we can help the resources that exist in our community to make that link, because we do have a lot of very talented individuals in our community who are looking at that, and again, making sure we're all speaking the same language, and families we know that need those resources get access to them very early on. But I think it is critical, and it will pay off as they enter our system later, whether it be in TK, K, or 1.
Thank you. Well, I'm quite excited that the pre-K program is up and running. One of you mentioned that every year it goes down a month? Is that?
So when the bill was first initiated, it started with December 2nd, then the following year, November 2nd, October, and now September 2nd. I promise you it's not going to go to August.
It was a phase-in.
It was just a way to phase, yeah.
Districts could respond with the site needs and facilities.
Secondly, of those students that are eligible, which I don't know if we know how many are eligible, how many take advantage of it?
That is something we're actually working on in First Five, because we had that same question even for early childhood seats. We don't know who's eligible. That's a very hard number for us to grasp, but if they could make some predictions about who's eligible for preschool, right? Not RTK, but even preschool, who's eligible, what neighborhoods need it, where are empty seats that there aren't, so they can have preschool before they even come to TK, before they come to K. We are trying to get a harder idea of that data so we can respond in kind. Are there certain schools that need it? Are there certain, so we can make sure to build in the right places.
Great, that's good to hear. I mean, I don't know how you do it other than knock on the doors and.
Yeah, you just keep on reaching out in different ways. And,
right, through churches maybe?
There's just lots of different ways, and I think over time, as the community sees the benefits, and parents really are sort of our greatest advocate as far as how they communicate that into our communities, I think that'll be the benefit.
Great. Another idea might be to recruit universities that have elementary student teachers who would like to have a part in a pre-K, and because I know how important, I've talked to people and the teachers, how important it is that you have that aid, especially in a larger class. And now with this new law, the classes could very well go up to max. So that's just an idea.
No, it's great. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Great report, and we look forward to hearing back from you on the policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Now we move on to F4, which is district elections discussion with Carl Corbin.
President Jay, Socorro Shields, Superintendent Shields, and
Carl,
directors.
could you close?
And I apologize.
There we go.
It is, my goodness, 8:25, but there could be nothing better than talking about the law and the
At
California Voting
8:25.
Rights Act at about 8:25 at night. I do know that you already had a study session on this on January 22nd, 2014, and you did a fair amount of depth and discussion on this issue. So I'm going to be giving you a review here, kind of highlight some of the issues, and then focus on, if you did have an interest in what some of the steps are, some of the timelines, some of the options associated with this. So there's a CVRA, the California Voting Rights Act, that is a state law. We also have a federal law that mirrors or a state law that mirrors the federal law. Essentially, as a general rule, school districts run at large, but they can choose to go to trustee. Your district has chosen to continue with the at-large. Santa Rosa is a charter city, but the charter basically defaults to state law, which then applies to the CVRA. You can form into trustee areas. In some districts, trustees they divide the area, so you could have, for example, 7 trustees, you could have it 7 areas, but you could have all the entire population vote for each individual trustee area, or you could have only the individuals within the specific trustee area vote on the district board member. For purposes of the CVRA, the safe harbor is to move to a trustee area, but under the definition of the CVRA, you can't have, for the safe harbor, you can't have your individual trustee area and then have it voted on by the entire population to fall into the safe harbor under the CVRA. It has to be the individual trustee area and the individuals within that trustee area that vote on the district board member. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, exactly right. They have to live, the trustee has to live, the potential trustee has to live in that area, and then their voters within that area would vote for that trustee in order to fall within the safe harbor of the CVRA. The issue and the concern is with the CVRA is that the district has a large minority population. The minority group's votes can be diluted depending on how the trustee areas are divided. That can impact the influence of the minority group on voting. Then there's a CVRA, again, that came into law in 2002. Talk about racially polarized. The CVRA makes it easier to challenge the use of at-large, the district-wide elections, as compared to doing so under federal law. It's easier to sue in California, like many other laws. It's much easier to sue in California than it is under federal law. And the issue here is not only the remedy, if there was a suit, the remedy would be you would have to move from a member at large to a trustee. But the kicker also is the attorney's fees. And I have 2 just quick cases on this issue. There was a 2008 case. 82% of the students were Hispanic. Only 1 out of the 7 trustees was Hispanic. The district agreed. They said, okay, we'll create trustee areas. The court invalidated the previous elections. It actually voted. The court said these elections, they threw them out, redrew the lines into the trustee areas, and then they initially requested or initially awarded the $2 million in attorney's fees. That was later reduced to only $162,000. And there's another case a little bit older from 2003. Again, there's a fact pattern there that they had a 38% Hispanic population. No Hispanic had been elected to the board in 20 years. District settled before a trial. Again, said, okay, we'll move to the trustee area. Again, $110,000 in attorney's fees. If a district is concerned about the CVRA and wants to change the voting by the trustee areas, again, this is the safe harbor, what I talked about, where you'd break in for your board, you'd have 7 different trustee areas, and to have the individuals living within that trustee area electing a trustee who lives within that area. Education Code Section 5019 provides the county committee authority, among other areas, to establish the trustee areas. And my understanding, if I'm correct, is that's going to be as I was looking at the agenda, the next item, and you have a director right now who's outgoing on the county board, Director Christoph? Okay. So it goes to that agency, oops, I'm sorry. So the process. Oh, and one last thing I want to back up for here, as far as the dilution, what they go and they look at is it's determined by the census. They take the census, as you know, every 10 years. They use that for a variety of purposes, such as representatives for Congress, redrawing congressional lines. They also do the same census data they use for this purpose. The last time they did it was in 2010. We typically don't get the results of the census till about a year later. That typically comes out in March. So for example, last time it came out in about March of 2011. And then under Election Code Section 5019.5, LEAs, local educational agencies, school districts that do have trustee areas are required to redraw and readjust those based upon the census. So if your district, for example, was to move to trustee areas, then come the 2020 census, around 2021, the school district may have to adjust it based if there's any changes in the population and the minority groups, the number of individuals we have, et cetera. If a school district doesn't take action to adjust based on the census, then the county committee will go and take the action for the school district. So looking at the process, the district's governing board submits a petition to the county committee. Before you submit the petition, the way these things are set up, these are pretty complicated. They have computer programs now with professional demographers who go and look at the modeling, because they don't come up and just say, and if you guys have been following in California, when they look to take away the right of the legislature to set the election for like state senators, state representatives, they've taken it over and now it's a committee does that, kind of an independent council. There's a variety of ways that you can draw these maps. Getting a professional demographer in is able to go and look at the minority areas, determine if there is some risk on this issue, and provide suggestions. Your district is more complicated because you have both an elementary and a high school board that has different boundaries. So in order to move forward with this, you're really the first step in this process would be to get a professional demographer. Our office has worked with other districts. We can recommend some, but that's what they specialize in. They come and they look, one, to see if they believe that there's a potential issue for dilution. The second is they provide recommendations from the board on various potential maps. The board would have a discussion on that. They would go and select which one you want to use. From there, it goes to the county committee. The county committee only meets when it's required. Their last meeting was January 26, 2015. Prior to that, they met in May 14, 2012. So they don't meet very often, but what would happen is your district would make a request to have the county committee meet to go, and they have to do a public hearing on this. The public hearing's heard within your district. Then from there, if they approve the petition, then it's submitted to the county superintendent. 60 days after that, it goes to the election. The election would be the next governing board election, the next statewide or primary, or the next regularly scheduled election. If the voters approve that, then from there, it would go to, it would be the next district election that was at least 120 days after the election that approved it by the voters. It would become into effect.
Carl, I have a question.
Yes.
Slide 5, this language of racially polarized
Yes.
elections. Who holds the responsibility to determine that? And then so this is in all elections, I take it. And so who is double checking to see if that happens? And what is the process for them doing that? Is it, like, does the registrar of voters hold any responsibility in this? Is it, because it would seem to me if it could be an issue for us, it's an issue for many districts in our area. So who's accountable for
Your
watching
district board is. Your
that?
district
Every
board
district
is,
board.
every district board is responsible for ensuring that there's not the racially polarized voter dilution. That you have the responsibility for that, and if you do not comply with your responsibility, that is where the lawsuits can come into effect, where the outside public will come in and sue your district to make you comply.
So what data would the board need to be able to make that determination?
Again, the professional demographer, we take the information from the census and you look at,
Piggyback on Socorro, yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
basically a professional demographer, because even if you had a situation where it may look, just look at the numbers, there's this number, for example, in our district, we have the largest minority group, Hispanic group. They would go and look at the number of representatives on the board who are Hispanic, look at the population, and try and determine whether they'd be dilution. You can't do that just based on just looking at the census. It is a fairly complicated process, and when they go to court, these sort of court issues do have demographers. It's a battle of the experts, so they put the information on the table. So again, the best way to avoid that sort of process is if you move to this trustee area, it's basically a safe harbor. You don't have to worry about a challenge on this issue because you've already taken steps to address it. Did that answer your question?
Ish.
Ish.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear you saying is if we're challenged in court, it will become this issue of racially polarized. If we do it ourselves, the boundaries can't be, the districts can't be challenged on the same?
If we go and if we're at large, it's much easier to be challenged. If we moved to a trustee where the individuals are elected, they live within the trustee area, elected by the voters within the trustee area, then that's a safe harbor, and that goes to insulate the district from any sort of lawsuits.
But could the way in which those voting districts are drawn, could that be challenged?
Yes, that could be challenged, which is why you would want to go and have a professional demographer to do this, to say, we went through scientific. Okay.
So now Ron has a question piggybacking. Okay, great, thank you. It'll be easier that way, thank you, okay. Sorry.
Okay, so moving back to, we were on slide 10, and I think I basically ran through the process for you. So if you wanted to move forward with this now, what you would need to do, your next election, I believe, is the November 2016. You need to get a demographer in, you need to have them come do get the data together, because again, they're going to look at, do they see a concern? What do they recommend for their trustee areas? You've got the elementary, the high school district, it's complicated. You could get the information and maybe the demographer says, I'm not seeing any significant issues here. But here are some suggested trustee areas if you want to do this. The board could then take action and review the report. They could choose to move forward with this. You could choose not to move forward with it. If you go to choose to move forward from there, again, it goes to the county committee. We request, hey, please have a meeting. They have a meeting. They have to hold a public hearing. From there, they go and make a recommendation or it goes to the county superintendent for the election, and then again for the next election, the next governing board, next statewide or primary, next regularly scheduled election. And then if the population approves it, then at least the next election that's at least 120 days away for a director, then the new trustee areas would apply. I will note that In November 2012, there was Measure Q. Those of you might remember that. That was where the Santa Rosa City Council was discussing moving from an at-large to basically a trustee area, and it was defeated about 60% no, 40% yes. There is one alternative way, and that is where your board could, where it's approved after the county committee, you could say, you know what, we don't want to do an election, we're going to send it straight to the State Board of Education, and we're going to ask for the State Board to waive the right to have an election. That takes 3 to 4 months, but if you do that, that doesn't allow the opportunity for the population to vote on this. That's pretty, and then what you have in here also is I have some materials from the California Department of Education District Organization Handbook, and I have just some snippets. It's about a 200-page document, but I have on there the quick reference chart 10.1, and then of course there is the handy flow chart G that talks about if this, then there, and it has, in all seriousness, looking at this, it has the education code sites, so it is a helpful document. Questions?
Ron, Frank, then Laura. Then Larry, then Laura.
Thank you, Carl. This is not an easy subject, I know that. My first question, and it's kind of related to what Socorro was asking, is, and it's key for me, what does it mean racially polarized voting when we're talking about racially polarized voting? Can you give me some examples of this? Where might we be making mistakes?
Well, I don't want to go into too many specifics about your district, but I will go back to slide 8. On slide 8, for example, there you had no Hispanic been elected to the board in 20 years, despite the fact that 38% of the population was Hispanic. In your district, if you were to take the Hispanic population as a whole and just do an average of the 7 board members, you would expect to have about 1.6 board members who are Hispanic. We don't have 0.6 people, but if you want to round up, but you do have a member on the board who is Hispanic, so that would be taken into account. But that's the sort of thing that they look at.
If somebody wanted to establish a pattern, would it be to go back and look at how we voted on issues that might, reflect race, or is it just numbers of people on the board?
It's both, but that's hard to look at also, because then you're presuming that one minority group votes uniformly regarding one issue, and none of us vote uniformly on anything, really.
Yeah.
But what they do look at is the representative to the board who speaks for the people. So typically what they will look at is representatives on your board.
Yeah. Well, we did, it was an interesting process when the county board was reduced from 7 to 5. And I thought it was very orderly. I thought it was done very professionally by the county. And they didn't, there were no demographers hired. They did this through the elections department. And the elections department actually did a lot of the groundwork and presented the county committee with 3 or 4 different choices. And we narrowed it down. So they were actually very much a part of the process in terms of the legal counsel there and in the county elections department. So the process wasn't like hiring, for me, at that experience was not hiring outside consultants, it was our own people. But there was a clear objective in terms of, what the county committee wanted to do on that. We're involved in the process right now, which is more to what we're talking about here with the junior college, where they're trying to draw a minority-majority district so that they can get the representation for the Latino community at the junior college that apparently has not existed there, forever. So this process has been slow, to be honest with you, and we have had a few meetings. Actually, we went quite a few times with the county change, but it was because we're getting close to crunch time. And now it's taken a long time for people to do this, but the process, I think, has been going on almost for a couple of years now. So anyway, I don't think there's a quick solution to anything that we might want to do here. But I think they're, in terms of expertise, the county, I'm impressed with what I've seen. The people are experienced with it. You have legal counsel that has done this in other counties. And so there are people that can help us with this if we choose to go ahead with it. So I just feel it sounds like it's an overwhelming kind of thing, but I do believe that we have people that can help us with it. But thank you anyway.
Frank.
I'm kind of glad this document came back before the board, because I've sort of thought about it since the last presentation, and given my position, I know a number of districts around the state who have been challenged by making this decision. It is sort of, my opinion now is sort of morphed from where it was. My notion is that if we are challenged by an outside legal firm, that we're probably going to be forced into creating boundaries around trustee areas. I mean, I just don't see how we're not going to be able to, because that's sort of how it works throughout the valley in California, in Southern California, all around. So we have seen large numbers of school boards go from at-large to trustee areas, just because the fear of being challenged, the court costs that will be incurred, the animosity that's created. The districts, in my experience, have been real successful in this, have been in front of the issue, not behind the issue. And so I would like our board to be sort of in front of the issue, as opposed to be worried about a lawsuit at some point or getting into litigation and other issues like that. But I do have a question and a further comment. If the board was to decide to move forward with trustee voting areas, how long of a process in calendar time would that be? I tried to follow your process as explained here, but I couldn't quite figure out, the real question is that something that could be accomplished and completed prior to the next election for the board, which would be November of this coming year? Or is that something that's going to take several years to accomplish?
And as your colleague was describing, it does take a while to do this, to go through the process. And again, if you're going to take just to the people to vote on that, then that has to be, as I talked about, the next governing board election, or the next statewide primary, the next regularly scheduled election. It can't be a special election. Unless you wanted to bypass that process and kind of try and fast track it and seek a waiver from the state.
Right.
Maybe for the November 2016, but that is very quick. That is essentially a year from now. And this does take a while to come through. It takes a while to do the studies, be it using the outside demographer, using some of the assistance from the county elections department. This process takes a while.
Yeah. If we're going to do it right, it takes a while to do.
Yes.
But I think it's important to at least find out if we have, in my opinion, if we have a problem here. And I would encourage the board to consider hiring a professional demographer to do the work to validate and protect us should we be challenged sometime in the future. I think we need a professional to handle that. And one reason is because of the unique situation this district finds itself. Both an elementary and a secondary district. There's like 5 of these in the state of California out of the over 1,000 districts. So we're kind of special in that regard. This is not an issue that, and I'm confident at some point in time, all 5 of these common board districts will eventually have trustee areas as well. I just think it's a matter of time. I just don't think it's debatable. So what I'm saying is I understand the importance of proper representation. When I look at our board is predominantly white. I don't know if we reflect the students in our classrooms in the district overall, maybe more so in the elementary district and the secondary district, and not so much in the elementary district. I think there's issues there. But I won't know the answer to the question until we have a professional provide us the data and information. And so I would really encourage the board to consider moving forward to ask the really hard question, do we have a problem here or do we not? That's the only way you're going to find out. And it's not, you can't just hire anybody off the street. It's got to be a professional that has a reputation and credentials to do this type of work. I don't really want to worry in the future. Every time I go to my meetings in Sacramento or around the state of California, I'm constantly hearing about another district that's embroiled in a nasty, contentious, messy situation. Now, another thing, we're talking about racial balance within the district board, but there's also other balances as well. Economic balance, income balance. There's other ways of looking at diversity than just skin color or heritage. So for me, I would really like to see us move forward if we get to that point and take a look at diversity in other ways, economics. Because what I have learned anecdotally is that many of the districts who went to trustee area voting didn't achieve the results they thought they were going to achieve. It's really quite common, but at least there's some kind of economic balance that's going on in those trustee areas that didn't exist before. And so it's a real complex issue. I don't think it's just necessarily racial. I think it's a lot of different factors. But I think our district is sort of unbalanced given where everybody on this board kind of lives and where all our schools tend to be located. So I would encourage our board to bring back at some point, hopefully sooner as opposed to later, a request to hire a professional demographer, just to know what the facts really are from a professional's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
So to be in safe harbor, we had 2 board members because we're supposed to be in 1.6. We have 1. If we had 2, we'd be in safe harbor?
No, that wouldn't be a safe harbor. It would certainly insulate the board more from challenges, but the true safe harbor, that's what Director Pugh had described, and this is again what districts are moving statewide to, is by moving to a trustee area, that's the safe harbor.
Okay. If you go to a general election and it is defeated, are you in safe harbor?
That is certain, no, you're not a guarantee safe harbor, but because you didn't move to the trustee, but you're able to go and provide that the people voted on this, the people turned this down, but then you hear the arguments, well, the majority turned down, and then the minority are still, no. So that's still not the perfect solution, but it's certainly helpful if we end up in court to say, you know what, we looked at this, we had a demographer's look, we took it to the people, and the people voted it down.
Yeah, so you're less likely to get sued,
Yes.
Much less likely. Also less likely if you had 2 full board members.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Laura?
Thanks for the report and for sticking around this long. A number of years ago, before Superintendent Shields came on, Margaret Rashad suggested that we might be eventually in the crosshairs of some of these groups. And so we had set up a committee to look at this. And we had a few meetings, and I forget why it disbanded and we didn't move forward. But she had mentioned that Sonoma Valley had been put on notice. I was wondering, do you have something about that and what happened?
Yes, there was. They were targeted, and that's Sonoma Valley with the district within this county. And they were targeted by some CVRA proponents, and they did hire a demographer. And they were able to get a demographer in there to show that in fact based, and again, it's quite complicated. They have all their statistical models, which is again why I would encourage using an expert, because they can speak the language. And they were able to show that despite the number, in that case, again, it was Hispanic, and the voting and the number of people that were on the board, that there in fact wasn't not dilution, and they were able to fend that off.
Okay.
But that was a challenge right here in this county, and that was back in 2010.
And don't they nominate by district, but then they're voted on at large?
There's two choices. You can have the district areas, for example, here, the 7 trustee areas, where you require the trustee to be from that trustee area, and you could have the entire district vote on that trustee, or you can have only the voters within that trustee area. For the CVRA, the safe harbor, it needs to be trustee area, voters within that trustee area voting.
Okay. So I guess I was wondering how many, do you have any idea, ballpark, of how many school districts vote for trustee areas as opposed to asking the state to waive the elections? Which is more popular, I guess?
I do not have a specific number. Director Pugh might in his position with CSBA. I do know, as far as a political perspective, people like to vote. And given the opportunity for the population to vote on something, I think, again, similar to Measure Q, but the downside is with that, sometimes the population doesn't do what the proponents for Measure Q wanted.
Right, because my understanding is that even if people vote, I mean, that doesn't nullify the civil rights, the Voting Act.
You're
right?
correct.
So these law firms could still go after the city of Santa Rosa, for instance, even though they voted on Measure, even though we voted on Measure Q.
They could, as I was describing to your colleague, that's going to help them in a court case if they took it before the people, but that's not going to absolutely insulate. No, it won't.
Because I had one of the institutes, and I get them all confused, but one of the leadership institutes, one that was run by Tanya Nareth. Do you know which one that is? Okay, they had done a report on voting patterns in Santa Rosa, and I could not find it. I know I have it, but I couldn't find it. But basically, it was pretty much saying that the minority votes, in this case mainly Hispanics, were pretty much diluted, and that it was very difficult for Hispanics to get elected to almost anything. So I have to agree with Director Pugh that I think that we should take a look at this. It just seems that it might be inevitable before we get on somebody's radar. And I think to be ahead of the curve would be better than to be responding, to be reacting. And I would agree that I think we should find a demographer and go forward from there. Maybe we'll find out the same thing they did in Sonoma Valley, that it's okay, but at least we would have that information, and we could avoid being sued. Because as you pointed out, even though the court didn't award $2 million, it still cost a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy and so forth. So I too would agree, because we obviously don't have any kind of racial balance, but as Director Pugh pointed out, we don't have any kind of geographical balance either. All of us live within 2 high school areas. So I think it would be good to get in front of this.
Jen.
Thank you. So Margaret gave us a report. We had a discussion a little over a year ago, and in that discussion, she said something a little bit different from what you said today, and I wanted to kind of clarify. She said that they're not looking at the composition of the board. Correct. They're actually looking at election results to see whether or not there was dilution. So, obviously, the composition of the board is, I'm sure, seen as a red flag, but in terms of whether or not there's a violation, they look at actual election results. Is that?
Yes, and it's in, I don't know if you had the materials from your January 22nd, 2014.
I looked for them, but could not find them.
It talks about in the legal update on page 3 and 4, there is a statistical analysis, and then as to your district on page 7 of that, they did have some figures, and it talked specific to your district. And the issue was, because this number is higher than the total current voting age population, history of representation can be an issue. And so it is the issue of representation, which you get from the voting. And again, that's reflected in your materials, page 7.
Okay.
And I
The
think
materials
that
from the last, yeah, okay. So, and her opinion at that time was that we probably didn't have a problem. But, I mean, so I guess I think it's important that we get a demographer to do some research on this. I read that Lifey report, and I think it was, I think we need a real demographer to do a report, and I think that would be helpful. I think it's really important that we increase the diversity of this board, the diversity in many ways. I agree with Director Pugh. I agree, you know, that we are not reflective of our student body, of our community, and so I think we need to increase the diversity of the board. But I've really come around on district elections in the past few years since I've served on the board, because I don't think they get us where we want to be. The first thing is, like, in the past few years, all kinds of problems, struggles, challenges we've had with our district have been revealed to be sort of the consequence of operating as a district of parts instead of a district. And I think that's just going to be exacerbated by district trustees. I mean, how could it not be? They're beholden to the people who voted for them. So that seems to be a problem to me. The other thing is that I talk to people about running for school board all the time, and people don't want to run. No, people don't want to run, but mostly they don't want to run not because they don't think they're going to be elected or because they don't want to run. They don't want to run because it's too much time. And so when we're talking about lack of diversity on the board, I think it's because how many people can do this job? You know, retired people can do the job. People who are self-employed who have some level of flexibility in their job, so they can do their job at, you know, in the middle of the night sometimes instead of when they're doing school board stuff, or people who are independently wealthy, and the occasional teacher. Director Gonzalez makes it work somehow, which is impressive. So, at any rate, I don't know that it gets us where we need to be. I mean, Director Kristoff and I have talked about this before. I don't think you get a real diversity on the board until you pay people, so that they can, you know, people can actually run who are regular people. But we can't do that. So all of that is to say that I think we should do this study, although I really oppose us moving to district elections. And so what I want to know is, what else can we do to try to increase the diversity of the board? And if we take affirmative actions to try to increase the diversity of the board other than moving to trustee areas, to district elections, does that help us if we are sued?
It does help you if you're sued, but I think the first thing is you need to get the data. Because part of what will happen if you are sued is what they do is they get their own demographer who gets and gathers the information. And that's what they use to show that you had an issue.
Sure.
So the first thing you guys need is information.
Agreed.
And getting a demographer to come in here, and they may say there's not an issue or there is an issue. If there is an issue, they're going to make suggestions. Is this based upon race, geographical diversity? That's the sort of information that you'll get from there. Once you get that report, the board's not required to instantly move to trustee election. That's going to be a decision. You'll get the information. The individual will review it with you. You'll still get multiple decisions points from there.
I mean, I would really like to hear a report. I mean, I do think we should get the data. I absolutely support that. But I also would really like us to discuss what are other things we can do to increase the diversity of the board, whether it's spending limits or, I don't know. I haven't thought through that a whole lot, but there's got to be some other ways, because I think that's really important that we think that our trustees think of the district as a district and not in their area. But so I'd love it if we could get, there's got to be some efforts made by whether it's a city or a school board or whatever to increase the diversity of candidates and the diversity of its board or councils, and so that would be interesting to know what kind of efforts other people have taken. Bill.
Thank you. A few comments. First, Laura raised the question of, well, if we put this on the election and then people didn't vote for it, what's the impact of that? The impact really becomes somebody who wants to do a CVRA action will do a very clear statistical analysis of that election and determine whether that election had racial polarization. Pretty darn easy to do on a precinct-by-precinct basis, which really puts the district in a position, whatever district it is, that if the public didn't want it, then you're in a position to, are you in a position to do something about it? The city of Santa Rosa really wasn't. The school district is, because we're in a position where we can go to a waiver at the State Board of Education and do that. So I think if we went through this whole process and it wasn't accepted, we'd hire a demographer again to analyze the election to determine whether that election in and of itself created any issue of racial polarization, in which case it ought to come back to the board to have a discussion about going directly to the Board of Education, or to the State Board of Education. Second, it is less an issue of the diversity of the board as it exists at any one time. In part, that relates to whether there's any diversity in the candidates that run for the board. If you don't have a slew of minority candidates running, and then that's an issue. And you can't change that necessarily, which goes to Jen's question about what are other things that can be done to maybe encourage that. But a demographer is going to look directly in this district. They'll go to the Omar Medina election, for instance, and that's an easy way to determine whether there's a potential issue of racial polarization. You know, look where Omar finished first, second, or third in precincts, and where he didn't, and look at the makeup of those precincts. That's pretty easy stuff to do. And what typically was done in CVRA actions in the Valley was that they went back as far as the Mervyn Dimely election and saw what precincts did with respect to him as in lieutenant governor. So you will have a number of issues. This area will give us, there'll be a couple of elections that are local. There will also be elections on statewide that they will analyze and determine whether they're seeing some patterns. And if they see patterns with respect to that, they can give us the information. I think it's important to have that data because if we've got it in front of somebody who decides to target the district. The fact of the matter is the law firms will hire folks and they'll go for the low-hanging fruit. Now, the low-hanging fruit in large part has been attacked to this stage. There appear to be less or fewer lawsuits being filed and fewer notices being sent out, which is to some extent an indication that the low-hanging fruit has been dealt with and now it becomes a little bit harder. But I don't think we ought to sit on that and just assume that that's where we are. I think, you know, just as we talked about in our first item, get us the data. Tell us whether there is an issue with respect to that, and if there is an issue with respect to it that creates a risk for the district, then let's run through the process and get it voted upon. I think it's a pretty simple concept. And I fully agree that it ought to be a professional demographer. What the county can do and can do very well at the elections office is help draft districts. We don't necessarily have to hire the demographer to draft districts because it's specific to information that is readily available to the elections department, and the elections department has provided that service to folks and can give you varying options to deal with exactly the problem that your professional demographer suggests. So whether we do that or not, you know, is something we can determine at that point if in fact we believe that there's an issue. At that point, it seems to me that it would be worth looking at our own elections department as one potential source from that standpoint. So I agree. I think that it is worth getting that data, and we need some recommendations of, you know, who's available, who's in the marketplace, and perhaps have them come tell us how they go about their business to do that. That I think would be instructive.
The firm for the demographer that did the Sonoma Valley, my understanding, I spoke with Margaret Rashad today. Where was she? Driving down to San Luis Obispo. Good to be retired. I think the same demographer is also doing the work for Santa Rosa Junior College. So the benefit of using, and again, I can get some information, I can forward that to your superintendent. You can then talk about having that person come here. But the benefit is that firm is working in your county in a couple of different districts.
Yeah, to the extent that they've already got databases that they've created, there may be a savings with respect to it. I don't know whether we need to put an RFP out on this and get bids from folks. I'm not really sure what the process ought to be from that perspective. You know, I want somebody who knows this stuff inside and out. And I want somebody who has been used potentially in legal actions and qualified as expert witnesses, so that if we get data, regardless of what it says, we can feel comfortable that if there's a challenge from either side of the issue, that we've hired good, solid people that can, if in fact we have to deal with it, we can rest assured that a good job was done. So.
Okay, bringing it back to Frank, you going to wrap up?
Yes, I would. I'd like to answer the question Director Close mentioned about how do we, you know, as a board, make it happen. And I don't know if we really actually can, because those are different mechanics here. But if you look at the National School Board Association, we have 15 board members, 3 from each for the 5 regions. Extremely difficult to get minority representation. So the National School Board Association has established seats for at-large Black, at-large Hispanic, and so on, so that we can be guaranteed there's some diversity. But they're way far away from where they should be, and they know it. And it's really hard for them to mechanically make it work for them. At the California School Board Association, back when I was president there, we made a big initiative to, with our directors on our board of directors, as they would roll off, we would make every effort possible to bring on diversity to our board. That seemed to work pretty well, because everybody saw the problem that was the existence then, and it's been corrected pretty much, although still work needs to be done, but they're much further along than the National Association. The trouble with the community is there's 2 people that can make a decision. So either the board can make the decision, or you can put it out to the vote of the public. And, and what you're doing at that point is you're not taking charge of the decision. And that can be debated later. But to give it to an entity out where the problem actually exists in the community doesn't really get you where you want to be at the end of the day. So what I'm suggesting is that, that it's a real complex issue. Every situation is different. But if the board recognizes there's a diversity problem on the board, then we're sort of responsible to sort of fix it. Whether, even if, in my opinion, even if there is, the numbers all come out just perfect. Because we don't really look a lot like what's going on in our classrooms throughout the district. We don't. Doesn't mean we're not good people or that we don't care, but just for the fact of who we are and where we happen to be over the last, my case, 25 years or so, things change a lot in this community, and the board needs to change as well, I think. But I would like to see the demographic materials and information. If we can get a demographer on as soon as possible, that'd be great, because I think there's a lot to be learned from that experience. Thank you.
Well, can I say one more thing? Sorry. Frank's
Go ahead. I know, Jen. I'm somewhat confused by Frank's comments. I agree with what you just said. I'm confused about why that was a response to me, so maybe I wasn't clear. Is that I absolutely think the board should take responsibility for increasing diversity on the board. I absolutely think that it's the board's responsibility. I just think that we should look at more ways. I think we could start sooner doing more things. This is not the only answer. In fact, I kind of think it's probably not the answer at all. But I'm saying, yes, let's take responsibility. Let's look at more ways, including this.
That's a good thing.
All right. Thank you. I actually think the board has changed an awful lot. I agree what we need to move forward with the hiring a demographer, how we go about doing that is up to the administration, and then we take it back before the board, I guess, but whatever. I agree with everything that's been said up here. But actually, I think our board has come a long way. After all, there are 3 women on this board out of 7 people. The board used to be made up of, years ago, business community. Now it's made up of members of the business community and educators. And a parent who's now has a 29-year-old and a 27-year-old. So, but all that's important, and I think we have come a long way, and I think this is the natural next step. So the thing that I'm concerned about is the length of time that this might take. It's difficult to get people to run for a board, for this board. It costs you personally a lot of money and a lot of energy to raise money if you're not going to spend your own money, and then it takes a lot of time to go out and campaign. So as we're trying to encourage people to run right now, and then go to them and say, well, you might run and get kicked out of your job, or when the demographer finishes their study, whatever. But we'll work it out. It will, I guess, as I say, come out in the wash. I don't think we have a choice but to go ahead with this plan, and we're all in agreement on that. So thank you, Carl. You look very tired. I think that it's time for you to go night-night, and we have one more issue we'll all be able to leave to. But thank you for helping us through this.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we move on to F5, our final item. Call for nominations for representatives to the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. And this is, Director Christoph, you have this position now, correct? You have this position now, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to continue?
So,
You want a nomination? We're going to
I think that would be nominated. I already nominated myself when I was contacted. She said, you want to run again? And she said, you have to update your profile. So I think that's an acknowledgement that I'm running. But if somebody would like to nominate me,
I'll nominate Ron, just to make it official.
Yeah, I'll second.
Well, and I think one of the things to note is we are invited to run for more than one district. So if there was anyone else who wanted to be, so it's the first, the second, and the fourth, which we have the opportunity. So we do have one representative who will be running again, but there are also 2 others, should the board care to put forward other names or want to nominate themselves.
Frank.
Well, there is one vacancy out of the 3. And there's this paragraph on the letter that talks about who can be on the actual district committee, and that paragraph is because of me, because I actually was on the county committee or district reorganization for about 2 meetings until they realized I worked at the junior college, and they found a law that says I couldn't do it, and they had to strike everything and start over. So it needs to be somebody who is not an educator, employed as one. So Larry would be safe, or any of the other board members here would be safe to join in.
I guess in part, it's a question of whether we have anybody who lives in the 2nd and 4th district who wants to do it.
Do we all live in the 1st?
No,
You live in the 4th?
no, I live in the 3rd.
I live in the 3rd. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I'm in the 1st.
Well,
So
does
I think we
anyone
have,
else
I think we
want
have
to do it?
1st and 3rd.
I don't want to do it.
So I think that,
No, you live in the 3rd.
Okay, so we have a nomination. I'm sorry, Director Carl made the motion.
no,
And Larry.
Thank you. You got that, Lori? You have that, Lori? So it's Larry and Bill seconded.
Dr. Hadel? Dr.
Aye.
Carl?
aye.
Dr. Close?
Aye.
Dr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Dr. Christoph?
Aye.
Dr. Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Well, we're adjourned, right? Good night. Thank you.